Hidden Gems, Episode 71, Stocking Stuffers for 2024. Welcome to Hidden Gems, a board game podcast where we review unusual, forgotten, and underappreciated board games. We're your hosts. My name is Chris.
This is Bill.
And I'm Cameron. Thanks for listening to our show.
Missed you last week, Cameron.
I missed you guys.
I tried to do your chipper intro at the end, and I don't think I hit your tone quite.
You said I missed you last week, and I was trying to think, what was last week? And I was like, shoot, we recorded last week.
Yeah.
Man, we're
knocking them
We're
out.
trying, folks, to make up for our long hiatus. This is as close together as we've recorded in a long time.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, it's really funny. So I have a fun story about the chaos that is trying to get normal things done. So every year around Christmas time, it's a tradition that in my very lengthy marriage of going on 5 years, Casey and I have tried to keep up, which is that each year we add a Christmas ornament to our tree for the year.
We do
it's
this
kind of
also.
like meant to be like the families represent the year in some way. So for example, the year that I got married, 2020, we did not want a pandemic related, it ruined our wedding plans,
Yeah, it did.
themed ornament. So what we got ourselves was actually a fish hook, a fish lure, and that we snipped the barbs off of. And the funny story about that is we really got into fishing in 2020. We had just gotten married. It was like, what are we going to do? Everything's closed. So we started basically going and fishing at different ponds around the area. Eventually got into fishing at the lake in the canoe, and then eventually got our little fishing boat.
Cool.
And so we're like, fishing's like a cool theme.
Yeah.
Well, it just happened that one of the days after we had gone fishing, I was like getting the gear all packed up and everything and taking the stuff out, and I had the rods kind of projecting out of the back of the truck, and I walked around the back of my truck to get something, bent down and snagged my shoulder on this particular fishing lure, and it literally went through my shirt, through my skin, deep enough to where it buried the barb.
Yeah, I've done something similar to this.
Standing
I had a
in the
feeling this is
driveway,
where it was going.
Casey had gone inside, and I'm sitting there going, I can't move. If I move, I'm going to rip it like out of my skin, and I can't reach my cell phone because it's in the truck. So I'm just sitting down in the driveway behind my truck going, Casey. She
Just
comes out
completely helpless.
She comes out looking for me, and I'm like, Casey, I can't move.
Oh, wow.
And so she had to, and thankfully my wife is a PA, so she has familiarity with kind of light type surgeries. And so it didn't freak her out at all, which was good. But, I was bleeding, and like it was tangled up in my shirt. It was one of those treble hooks. And so she literally had to sorry for the graphic description, but she had to
you gotta go through.
push it the rest of the way through to get the barb out. And then I had to lead her verbally toward some wire cutters, and she had to clip the other end of the barb off that way and then pull it back out.
DIY, good job.
To get it off. So we're just like, you know what, we're gonna cut off the other barbs, and we're gonna hang this on our tree and remember this forever.
That's awesome. What a memory.
So that was 2020. So this year, because we've been parenting two very young children and all sorts of other just chaotic things that just wrecked our plans in many different ways. You guys know the meme of the dog sitting in the room surrounded by fire, and he's saying, "This is fine."
Yeah.
That's our Christmas ornament this year. We wrote a nice scripture verse on the back about how when you walk through the fire, you'll not be burned, and God will be with you, and everything. Because we're like, we still want to honor God at Christmas time,
Right.
But also that was what our year felt like.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get it.
So it's good to be here and for us to be recording a show, not a month and a half after our previous episode.
We're glad you're here, man. I know you're a little bit sniffly tonight and not feeling super great, but I do appreciate you being here. We did record a little early this time because I'm going up to New York City next week.
Ooh,
Christmas in New York, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm going to do all the Christmassy things, Rockefeller Center, and catch some shows, Fifth Avenue, Macy's, all that kind of stuff.
So my wife went last year for that. Her cousin had a 10 times 10 year birthday.
Okay.
And I will say one thing not to do. There's a bus tour of the New York Lights.
We don't do any of that stuff.
Oh, it was
we don't do
horrible.
bus tours, group tours.
Yeah.
We've never nothing against it. It's just not our preferred way to travel. Even when we went to Japan, in Tokyo and Kyoto, it was a little scary because it's just very different place, right? Yeah. And I thought about it. I was like, should we do some group tours? We don't speak the language, or we might get lost. And I was like, nah, we're not doing it. And we got around just fine. So we tend to avoid stuff like that.
I'll say most of the time I go to a place new, especially if I'm by myself, I'll do a half-day bus tour and then go back to the places I want to go to.
Oh, nice. So it's a good way to kind of scope it out.
Right, exactly. So this is the one I like.
That's how I did Dublin. The first time I went, I was by myself, and it was like, I have no clue where I'm going, and also I don't have a default way to get around.
Right.
So if I just buy this $20 thing, then I'll only spend $20 on transportation, even if I have to just go to one of the random stops and get on the tour bus later.
Right.
Because I just go off and do my own thing for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, Katie and I did that in Dublin.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
It's not a bad tour. There's a lot of kind of fun stuff to do there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's new, Bill?
What's new?
Merry Christmas. You look great.
Oh,
You
well,
got the
thank
Santa
you.
suspenders on. You brought the Santa hats. We're feeling very festive tonight.
Chris prompted, say, hey, bring the Santa. He wants to be in the Christmas spirit. So,
I need it.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm taking one for the team. I'm wearing the UNC blue one so that Chris didn't have to.
Yeah, Bill threw that in my direction. I about came across the table at it.
I want to have some sort of game of chance so that the loser had to wear it. No, I don't have a whole lot to say about things I did. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit more was the Age of Comics that we talked about last week. Just because I did a little bit of a deep dive accidentally when I got the board game, just because I was kind of curious about it. And I was curious really about the golden era.
It's a cool era.
It is a cool era. But it's way more complicated than I thought it was because comic books really were a thing in like the 1930s and especially in the 1940s.
100%.
And there was no regulations around it. And that's when all those different genres popped up of science fiction and horror right?
And that's the big one,
right? And detective things and things with women criminals and things like that.
Pulp noir.
Yeah, exactly. And to the point where the Congress got involved because they was afraid that it was corrupting all our kids.
The minds of the youth.
Exactly. Yeah. So a guy named Murphy, who was a child psychologist at the time, was saying that there's a kid in New York who killed somebody. There were some other people committing crimes. This is like a how-to way to do things by reading these comics.
Yeah.
And so there was a long period there of government hearings about what they were going to do about it. Well, they had a recess for like 8 months in like the 1950s when the fear was there was going to be some sort of legislation when the comic book industry decided they would legislate themselves. And that's when the
Comic Codes Authority?
Yeah, the Comic Codes Authority came out. Exactly. And Murphy was the guy who was doing it. But to me, when I thought of the golden age of comics, I thought about it being the Boy Scout comics, right? Here I am to save the day, the kind of the whole dialogue that you see Superman doing,
right,
kind of thing. And that really didn't happen until after that 1950s ruling. Parents had burning parties where they ended up burning lots of these comics.
Yeah, actually, so interestingly, I'll just interject quickly since, comics are near and dear to me and there's some interesting tidbits to throw in. Batman, a lot of people don't know this, but Golden Age Batman, like I shouldn't say because Batman never stopped getting published. It's one of the few Golden Age comics that actually continued through that period during the Comics Code Authority where comic sales just dropped off the map and a lot of comics stopped getting printed. But Batman actually used a gun and shot people in the Golden Age.
Right.
Which is not at all in his character. If you're more familiar with...
He just ties people up and hangs them up.
Yes,
for the
he's actually very anti-gun because that's how his parents were murdered in the alley. And so he has a revulsion to guns. He won't use them and he won't kill, even though a lot of people, including like his partners, like his Robins, are like, why don't you just kill the Joker? Like, he's a scumbag, right? But he morally won't do it.
Yeah.
But pre-crisis, Golden Age Batman shot people with a gun,
that's right.
100%.
They knew what justice was back then.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing that was kind of interesting to me was there was a lot of roots set down for later characters, because there was a Spider Queen. I don't know if you know about that. It basically had the same transportation method as the Spider-Man that came later, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Never heard of Spider Queen. Interesting. I mean, there's Spider Woman, but I don't know Spider Queen.
She was in the 1930s or 40s kind of thing.
Interesting.
So, yeah. There's a few others that I won't go into, but yeah, I thought it was a very fascinating age of things that were way more off color, I guess, and not the Boy Scout stuff that I used to think of was totally the golden era, which it really is much more rich than that, I guess.
Yeah, so it also interesting you should mention that. I just caught wind of this a couple weeks ago. There's actually a project in the works now to bring back and publish for the first time comics, horror comics specifically, that were canceled and not published in like the 40s and the 30s due to the Comic Codes Authority, and to revive those and actually bring them to print for people to read them, because they were banned basically.
I will mention one comic ad that was in the that was banned, or actually was changed from the Comic Book Authority, that was a sci-fi one where this astronaut, it sounds very Twilight Zone-ish, but an astronaut goes to this planet that was completely populated by androids, and there were orange androids and purple androids, and they were wanting to join the Federation of Planets kind of thing. And this astronaut was evaluating them, and you never saw the astronaut's face all the way through. He had his mask on, and the two sets of androids could never integrate with each other. They were always separate sort of things, and because they couldn't come up with a method to be at peace and integrate with each other, they didn't let them get in the Federation. And the last panel of the comic was the guy took his helmet off, and he was a black guy, and the Comic Book Authority was like, we can't do that.
No way.
They did, and they forced it to be a white guy. So
wow.
So it would be interesting if that could come back and be like a black guy kind of thing, which is, it's super interesting what the politics was at the time.
Wow.
So anyway, fascinating stuff.
What crazy time. That's cool, Bill. Thanks for sharing. I love the classic comic stuff. I could go on and on. I won't, but yeah, I love it, man. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing your game with us last episode, too.
Mr. 2.
It wasn't you, Bill.
No,
it wasn't
I get
because of you.
I get it. I have one comment. You don't have to win every round. You could have bumped some of your other lower comics.
Well,
but
that was my whole point. Was I feel revulsion towards games where I intentionally have to try to not do well in a certain area.
That's not necessarily not doing well. You can still make the same amount of money by taking a lower comic and move it up.
Yeah, but if you're sitting there staring points in the face and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to have to pass on these 6 fans because I don't want to have the best comic, that's just bleh. No.
That's just poor strategy.
Yeah, no,
okay.
Bill, I also pointed out the fact that there was strategy in that. I just don't enjoy it.
I get it.
I don't like that.
So if you want to hear more of that, you're going to need to go watch episode 70.
Reopening old wounds.
That's right. Mine's still not healed.
Maybe this is why we leave such a long gap between episodes.
Right, exactly.
So the friendship can heal in between.
What about you, Cameron? You got anything else to talk to? Bill and I've been bantering. I've got one more thing, but you've been quiet for a minute here.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. So I thought this was kind of fun to pair these together because they both happen to be things that Chris suggested to me in the past, and one of them is one that he mentioned on the podcast. So I don't get to play a lot of video games, but I did get to play The Pedestrian.
Yeah.
I was looking at it. I looked at it like right when we were recording. I was like, oh, this kind of looks like it's right up my alley. It's kind of puzzly.
Things you can do with Casey.
Yeah, I was thinking it was something that Casey and I would enjoy together.
Switch again, by the way.
Yeah, we played it on Switch. But yeah, I think it's available on other platforms too. So I got it on Switch and I enjoyed it. It definitely gets pretty challenging.
Yeah, it does.
And I had only kind of one issue with it is it was almost, and maybe this is just where I'm at in my life and sort of my cognitive capacity. I would get tired of playing it. I would do I would do a run at a time of 30, 40 minutes and, get to kind of the next big stage or whatever. And then it'd be like, okay, I'm done for now. So I probably beat it in, I don't know, 6 sessions maybe.
Yeah.
I kind of just took my time with it to make sure I was still having fun. But you mentioned, and it's funny because I don't know that I would have kept playing if you hadn't mentioned in your little review of it that something happens, that it's kind of like
there's a huge payoff.
This payoff that happens in The Witness, which is another game that I played in the past and really enjoyed when I got to that moment of realization of like, oh, and he was like, yeah, there's one of those moments. It was so cool.
It was, wasn't it?
It was so cool. And I don't want to give away too much, but I hope it's okay if I mention what I felt like it made me feel like.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Chris knows what I'm going to talk about because we already talked about it. So when you get to this moment, the game changes and it feels like the game Myst. And Myst is, if you don't know it, it's an old game. If you know it, you probably love it.
Yeah.
I have not met anyone that actually played the whole game and didn't really love it, but it just has this such an eye-opening moment, and you're like, oh man, now I'm like in this world and I'm solving puzzles, and it's in the same way but it's in a different way, and it was so cool. I was only sad that it didn't last as long as
it's
as I thought.
Short moment in the game. It's at the very end.
Yeah, I thought the game was transforming, and then I was going to play a whole nother sort of same length of game like that. The transformation happens in the like middle of the game. Yeah, it happens like right at the end. That was the only disappointing part.
Yeah, I think they did it for thematic reasons because, again, without being spoilery, it's kind of like a crescendo moment.
It is
where you're like, everything I've been doing has been building to this moment. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And then you do it, and it's super satisfying, and then it ends.
Yeah.
You know? But it's just so worth it to get there, I think.
I definitely feel like if it's we got out like while we were ahead type of thing, like I'm okay with that. I could have played several levels like that and have been happy, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the one. The other one... you guys were actually, you and Bill were just having a casual conversation about this, and I happened to be listening on one of the game nights. But I went home and actually watched The Sandman.
Oh, nice. Oh, boy. Okay.
And it's a freaky show.
It is.
It's real crazy. And you talked about the episode that happens in the restaurant.
Yeah, 24/7.
That's the worst episode of the whole show.
Really?
Not in a it wasn't well done way.
Well, it's very dark.
Made me
if that's
feel
what you
awful
mean.
way.
Yeah. It's
I was
dark.
thinking about it for like the whole next 2 days because it freaked me out so much. And but
you should read it.
But I also
the comic is worse. The comic is worse. 100%.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I don't think I could handle that.
I was actually thinking when I saw it.
Yeah.
On the lineup, and I was like, okay, they're going to do it. Because that was my first question when I knew they were doing season 1 is, are they going to do 24 hours later?
Yeah.
Which they call 24/7 in the episodes. And I saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to do it. Then my next thought was, how far are they going to go?
Yeah.
They did not go all the way, and you should be glad.
Yeah, I don't want to know what else happens in the actual thing. But that episode really made me think because it's saying something.
It is definitely saying something.
It's making a claim about the world and how the world works and how desires work and everything else. And I realize that we're talking about it, and maybe not everyone has seen it, but you know, obviously he's the guy that's doing that is insane,
John D.
right?
Yeah.
But it the thought that I had about it was what it's suggesting is that if there were no lies. Right. That if there were no lies, then people would just do these grotesque, awful sort of
their darkest desires,
base desire things. Yeah. And the thing is that like I understand the claim, but I think that it's wrong because I think that if people were really, really, really honest, they would be vulnerable. Right. And so all of this
philosophy, Bill. Here we go.
So all of this like rage and all of this like entitlement and I'm just going to get mine sort of
desire. Yeah.
Sort of feels that like everyone basically expresses as their inhibitions about telling the truth are destroyed by his use of the ruby. I think that what actually would happen, right? Like, so like the woman who's the waitress, you know, and all the things.
She's very important in
the
this
direction
story.
that she goes as she becomes more honest. She starts out more vulnerable, but then she goes in this direction that she actually later says, this isn't what I actually wanted. Right. And I won't say what she does because I don't want to mention that on the show.
Right.
But what she does as supposedly her lying inhibitions are removed isn't what she really wants, right? Because he even says what you really want is to be loved, right? And I think that all of the examples, some of them might go that direction, but I don't think that all of them would. And maybe I'm have that perspective because my wife and I have been doing a lot of work on our marriage and stuff this year, and one of the most valuable things that we've learned is that if you really want to be closer to each other, that vulnerability about what you want, vulnerability about how you feel, is what makes you closer to one another. And so I think maybe because I have that context in my like real life, is maybe that's why that particular episode had such an impact on me, that I was like, oh man, like it's saying this, it's making this claim, and I just don't think that it's right.
I think that's what's great about it. I want to get Bill's thoughts, but I'll say one more thing, and I'm going to shut up so Bill can talk. But I get excited about the Sandman, and I get excited about it not necessarily because I think everybody will enjoy it, like you maybe, but it does make you think.
I appreciated it for that reason, but I didn't
like
enjoy
you can't
it.
Not watch an episode and it not make you at least think. There's a couple of moments, but that one particular issue, I think, is at least in the first volume, is the most thought-provoking.
Oh, for sure.
Of all of the issues. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah.
Well, I love Neil Gaiman. I love all of his other things, or most of his other things, a lot, and I do think he's really good at bringing to light the kind of human condition and making you do those sorts of things, making you think about uncomfortable things that you don't know that you should be thinking about, sorts of things. That episode also disturbed me, Cameron. I've kind of must have like suppressed it because I can't remember all the things that happened, but I do remember walking away from it that way. I will say that, from a philosophy point of view, that we contain multitudes, and so trying to put them all in a line and saying this is linear or something like that is somewhat problematic to me, and your statement that this is wrong kind of thing. But
I get what Cameron's saying too, so I say this unashamedly. Cameron and I are both Christians and believers, and Neil Gaiman's thought process about human nature doesn't necessarily probably align with our worldview.
Yeah.
But I can still read The Sandman and appreciate it getting me to think, in a certain way, even if I disagree with what he's trying to convey about us as people. Because it's just like, I like running through that thought experiment, even if it doesn't necessarily align with what I, think.
Yeah.
Well, I can totally get why you wouldn't maybe like it. I appreciate you at least trying.
No.
You know what I mean?
The thing is that I'm actually saying I kind of enjoyed the show. I mean, I found myself once I got past that episode and kind of the tumult in my heart after watching it and feeling disturbed because they do a lot of disturbing stuff in that episode. Is that I found myself wanting to watch the show because I was so curious, and I think that so many of the other episodes do really interesting things, like about the guy that basically like won't die. I thought that was a super fascinating episode. And
you're talking about the guy that puts his delays his death, or he keeps meeting death in the pub over many years.
Right.
That's also an awesome issue to read.
Yeah. I really liked that one and the things that it said as well. So I think that's what I was impressed about. Is I feel like we watch a lot of TV, and I actually watch less TV than I normally would. But when I do find something that I'm like, oh, like this is saying things about the world. That's like, okay, this is art, right? And that's how I felt. And Bill, I think you mentioned when you guys were talking about it that like there were some shots that were like clearly composed to be sort of right out of the comic books. And I found myself like pausing it occasionally because it was like, man, the lighting and the framing and the effects here, they're like, this looks like one of those long page wide
splash page
like things on from a comic book, like with this big epic artwork piece. So I thought that was pretty cool. There was one more that I wanted to mention. You know what? I'll drop that one.
Save it for next time.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, Chris, what's your last one?
All right, yeah. I'll give mine real quick. I got a video game to talk about. This is a good one, guys. This one I enjoyed quite a bit. So this one is called Rogue Legacy, specifically Rogue Legacy 2. I've played Rogue Legacy 1 in the past, I just recently played its sequel. Have you guys heard of this game?
I haven't.
Is it Rogue?
It is. It's roguelike, yeah. So Rogue Legacy is a roguelike game where you're a knight, okay? And you are venturing into a castle fighting evil monsters. That's really all you need to know about the plot.
Do you have a dog?
You do not have a dog.
Okay.
But what's interesting about this is you're going to die, like you do in most roguelike games, right? You're going to die many, many times over the course of the game because that's just how they're designed. But what happens is when you die, you don't come back. You're dead. But the way the game continues is that your heirs carry on after you die.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Legacy.
Okay. So it's your legacy, right? So it's kind of funny. The game does a funny thing where every one of the characters you played over the course of the game is like a portrait in your castle. From like, you know, like you can go back to your great grandfather who died trying to overtake this castle, right? So when you die, you have 3 heirs, male and female, that you can pick from, and they're of different classes. So you might have a barbarian heir, you might have a ranger heir, you have like a mage heir. So you can choose them based on the class. But what's also really funny about this game, I think, is they have different genetic traits. Okay? So, for example, some of them might be like very small in size, small for their size, and so they're smaller on the screen, but they're like more maneuverable. Some of them have bad vision, so the monsters are like blurry.
Oh, wow.
But if you choose an heir who has a negative trait, they generate more money for you on the run. It's like to compensate for this crappy trait, you get more gold during your run, okay? So as you venture in, you get as far as you can. When you die and you choose your next heir, everything that you earned gets passed on to your heir. So you get all the money, all the gems, all the stuff that you got from your run, and then you spend that on your castle, your kingdom, and that's your skill tree, okay? This is so cool. So when you spend money and upgrade your castle, your skill tree, and you choose something, it opens up like a new wing of your castle. It like grows. You're like building a new wing. It unlocks new classes. It unlocks new abilities. And this game really nails that feeling of, which I think is critical for a roguelike, of I'm getting better.
Right.
I'm getting stronger. I'm becoming more formidable. Some roguelikes, like Dead Cells, are very punishing in that you don't get like, you don't feel that progression as strongly as it's more like you're learning. You're like learning, but you're not getting better. You're not
like
getting
just
more health.
memorize it and push through and don't screw up next time.
Exactly. This one, you're actually getting stronger.
Cool.
So you feel like you have a chance.
Does the world level up with you?
No.
Okay.
So you can go back to an area where you're getting wrecked previously, and you can go back 10 heirs later, and now you're much more formidable.
Cool.
Okay. And so that's basically the game. And I will say that it just nails that just one more run feel. You know what I mean? Like there was one night, it was on a work night. Probably shouldn't admit this audibly, but it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was like,
Gotta try again.
I can't end on that. You know what I mean? I'm just going to do one more run, and then you'll die, and you're like, I'll just do one more run. And before you know it, it's like 3 in the morning.
Oh my
you
gosh.
know, like it just has that pull on you. You know what I mean?
So how long is one run?
It can be as short as 5 minutes if you get into trouble, or it can be, you know, if you're running really good, 30 minutes.
Wow.
You know, it can make a pretty good dent in it. So it's just great.
Does that Switch?
Yeah, played it on Switch. Super fun, super addictive. Just lots of puzzles, secrets, hidden areas. They have these rooms called fairy chests that give you really awesome upgrades. But they're like challenges. It's like you have to get to the end of this room without getting hit. And there's like all these spiky balls and axes swinging all over the place. And so you're trying to like just get through there to get this awesome loot.
Is it like side-scrolling platform?
Side-scrolling platform. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, Rogue Legacy, people, check it out. It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
That's pretty awesome, Chris. That's a game that I might even like.
I think you would.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So what's our drink tonight?
Yeah, so I made a very strong, probably too strong, drink that I enjoy quite a bit called a Brandy Alexander. It's a very wintry drink, I think, because it's got nutmeg on it. And I think nutmeg just, you know,
It looks wintry.
screams Christmas. Nothing has cream, so it's white. You know, it's kind of got that look to it. It's 1.5 ounces of cognac, an ounce of creme de cacao, 1 ounce of heavy cream. Mm-hmm. That's where that kind of white comes in. Shake that, strain it into a glass, and then garnish it with some nutmeg.
It's really good.
Yeah, the one thing... So we used some creme de cacao that we got in Asheville, and I wish I had looked at it a little bit closer because I think it has something else in there.
Like more alcohol.
Yeah, which made this drink very strong. And when I tasted it, I was like, this isn't quite right because I've had this one numerous times. But if you make this as written, it's very enjoyable. Kind of like a warm fireplace kind of a drink.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You guys ready to talk about some games?
Oh, it's not game time yet.
We gotta do Christmas trivia.
Christmas trivia. And we have a guest contestant tonight.
Oh, my goodness.
Dun, dun,
My wife, Talia.
All right, awesome.
Dramatic entry.
Oh, man.
Well,
I'm trying to figure out how we're actually going to do this. I might just share my mic with her.
Okay.
I think that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Oh, my goodness. So you guys going to... Are you guys going to sing Christmas carols?
No, for sure not.
After a 22 episode hiatus, or probably more like a 52 episode. What episode was Talia on? Do you remember what number? Episode 10.
So how long have you been standing out there in the cold?
Yeah, hours. Waiting on y'all.
Yeah, so Talia's back with us all the way back from episode 10. We are sharing a mic, so if it sounds a little bit weird, sorry about that. I'm going to try to move out of the way whenever she wants to speak. But welcome back, babe.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Talia.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
I remember that episode, Habitats. I was on that episode.
That's right.
You do know you're welcome to play board games with us if you want to.
So kind. Thank you for the invite.
Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to go through the rules as we've done in prior years. I'll say I invited Talia on because we usually have Jason. Jason couldn't make it on the Christmas episode this year.
Oh, is she playing against us?
She is indeed.
Oh, my gosh.
So
ringer.
Talia would do better than Jason anyway.
Let's go.
Oh, man. I'm nervous.
Yeah, we've got to have 3 players to play. It's way more fun that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question. If you feel like you know the answer, say answer. Okay, that's like buzzing in, and I'll give you a chance to answer. I will keep score. And that's basically it.
All right.
Cue
Let's go.
the Christmassy music, Cameron. All right. Question number 1. Don't look at the answers over here. And don't cheat,
really trying hard
because
not
she's
to.
right next to me. All right. In 1996, parents resorted to violence to obtain this red-colored, cuddly, fuzzy toy for their kids.
Answer.
Elmo. Oh, answer. Shoot.
Tickle me, Elmo.
Sorry. You gotta say answer.
Okay, we're going to give it to Bill. He cut in.
Cut in. No, you can give it to Talia.
No, he did the correct.
He actually buzzed in
He actually
correctly.
buzzed in correctly.
We're gonna take away Talia's Christmas cocktail.
Right.
Bill will
Okay,
fight
Mr.
you during trivia. He takes this very seriously.
It's true.
He does not mess
Because the
around.
prizes are so big out here.
Okay, question number 2. Which toy belongs to the following slogan? What walks downstairs alone or in pairs?
Answer. Oh, Slinky.
That is correct.
Wow. Bill.
I was gonna go with bananas in pajamas because I don't really remember the song.
Oh, I remember that. Everyone wants a slinky. No,
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
No idea.
Maybe
That's
that's
the only
just
one I
me.
can
But
do
he knew the answer.
That's the only toy I can think of that goes downstairs. Right.
Smart.
Okay, question number 3. This is the best-selling Game Boy game of all time, with over 35 million units sold since June 1st, 1989. What is it?
Answer.
Okay,
Mario.
that is incorrect.
Answer:
Yes,
Tetris.
that is correct.
Oh, wow.
I should have known that.
I was gonna say Mario too, but
Tetris, one of the greatest selling games of all
I
time.
knew.
I was sitting there going, "What game would they probably include with every Game Boy?" Had to be Tetris.
There's a whole documentary on that.
Yes.
Like them saying, "Hey, you have to have this game. That is it's a killer app for this system."
I had it playing on the Game Boy in like that kind of like greenish hue that would
Yeah.
give you a headache if you did it too long. You know,
yeah.
that's Yep.
With the, what was it, a 2-inch by 2-inch screen?
Yeah. Unless you had the little magnifier.
And you had to hold it at a very specific angle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
see it.
please talk to me about low tech.
Bill's about to start talking about a television.
I don't know anything about what y'all are talking about. Nothing.
I was like, I was a cheerleader. I was too cool for that.
I laughed at you guys.
You bunch of freaking nerds. All right, question number 4. What battery-powered board game has pieces called breadbasket,
Answer.
spare ribs, and water on the knee?
Man.
Operation.
That's correct.
Oh,
I actually
so
did know
fast,
that one.
Bill.
Sorry. Normally I'm not.
He studied up for
The
this.
neurons are firing for Bill tonight.
He's ready.
It was good. It's
the
the heavy
suspenders.
cream.
All right, Talia, I think you're going to get this one. Are you ready?
That's a lot of pressure.
You got this. All right. First sold in 1967. Well, maybe Bill will get this. What toy has kids adorn a light panel with small colored pegs
Answer.
to produce different pictures and patterns?
Light bright.
That is correct.
Ooh.
Good job,
I
Talia.
called it.
Good job.
I will say Light Bright is one of those toys that is like ingrained in my childhood. I
Yeah.
remember playing with that thing very close. Getting really
I didn't
close
have
to it.
one, but certainly the commercials are ingrained in my mind. Saturday morning cartoons and stuff, which is a dead thing now. I guess Saturday morning.
Oh,
morning
kids
cartoons
don't watch
live in-
cartoons on Saturday morning
Isn't that
anymore. And it's
sad?
It is
super sad.
It is super sad.
I used to get up early on Saturday
same,
morning,
yeah.
like 7 a.m. to watch Scooby-Doo and the Jetsons. Because you
Yeah.
had to be hardcore
Yeah.
to do that.
Right.
Like super early.
Every time I think about a Light Bright, at least now in this phase of my life, all I can think of is that's a game with a lot of pieces, and it's going to get all over the floor, and I'm going to be picking up 10,000 little tiny pins.
100%.
It's like anytime my kids get a puzzle, I'm like, oh, please stop giving my kids puzzles and stop giving my kids tiny blocks, because that's all I do now is pick up tiny blocks and puzzles.
Dang, I have president of a whistle and drums for Owen in the car.
All right, next question. What common cuddly childhood toy did German seamstress Margaret Steiff say got its name from a president of the United States?
Answer.
Yes,
Teddy bear.
that is correct.
Yeah. Nice.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Bill's on a roll
Bill
right
is
now.
on
Now,
fire.
crushing it.
We got a few more questions here, though.
Every question starts in 1967.
I'm getting ready to get out of the 60s here. There's going to be a chance for you to come back here. We got to get out of Bill's era here. All right, here we go. The Ohio Art Toy Company purchased the rights to manufacture L'Écran Magique, which means the Magic Rider, and renamed the product to what more commonly known name?
I know what it is.
L'Écran Magique, the Magic Rider.
If I describe it, can I get it?
No. Yes.
Crayon.
The crayon.
I'm kidding. Take that out.
I love that. I love that.
That's all I got.
All right.
I know what it is. I can
I'm
tell you.
calling time.
I'll tell you what it is. You use the little dial, so you
Yes.
draw it, and you
Yes.
ship it over your head and shake it above your head. It's called
the
the.
same.
Oh,
It's an Etch-a-Sketch.
Sketch.
Oh, yeah,
I was thinking, I was like, there's one in Toy Story. I should know this.
All right, you two. Here's your chance. Are you ready? Okay. What water gun with manually pressurized air sold by Hasbro was
Answer.
invented by Lonnie Johnson in 1989?
Super Soaker.
That is correct.
I don't know why you thought it was
Well, I don't know. You know, when we were in elementary
Dude.
school, we had the Super Soaker
I
parties
was
at school.
all about the Super
I
Soakers.
never had a Super Soaker party ever, not one time.
I mean,
Me either.
My first one, though, I didn't get the Super Soaker 100. I got the Super Soaker 200.
oh, right. Yeah, right.
And you could hold a whole lot more water than all your friends. And it had the nozzle on the end. If you change it, it changed the way that it sprayed.
Yeah.
You could just drench people with that.
Man, I remember being in grade school, like, the Super Soaker was just, like, so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody had to have one.
That's right. Like the,
Do
only
kids
the cool-
have water fights still?
Yeah.
Ours
Okay,
did,
good.
For sure.
Dude, we used to have water fights all the time. It would be like, it would just evolve into everyone eventually is just completely soaking wet.
Oh, totally.
And you're throwing water balloons and just dumping buckets of water on each other. Like, it always starts with like tiny squirt guns.
Yeah.
And then by the end, everyone's just spraying each other down with the hose.
And then you've got the sprinklers out and the slip and slides, and then
Yeah.
it's just mayhem at that point.
I can't wait
What a
till my
boy
kids
thing.
get old enough to have those types
It was a boy thing.
of water
Yeah.
fights.
I don't recall.
Okay, next question. What is the name of the 1998 toy released by Tiger Electronics that resembles a hamster and an owl and spoke its own language?
It's the Gremlin.
Oh.
Okay, too slow. All right. Spoke its own language that was gradually replaced by English.
Answer.
Yes.
Furby.
That is
Furby.
correct.
Yeah. They talk to each other.
They do.
This, for the record, I'm still salty about this. This is why I had penalty points in the past that Bill pitched fits about to discourage people from saying answer and then trying to think of the answer.
I said it right away.
No, you say answer and then you're like, okay, what is it?
No, I said the Gremlin right away,
Vindicated.
and then you said no. I said the wrong answer.
All right, next question. Beanie Babies come with heart-shaped tags featuring what two-letter first
Answer.
name? Yes, Ted.
T.Y.
That's right.
Both said it at the same time, though.
We did. But
Did you know it?
I'm the guest, so I
Yeah, I'm
get to
giving it.
answer
I'm giving it to my wife.
It's
Sorry.
okay. All right.
That's T.Y.
A
or
little
Ty.
nepotism.
I'll take it.
Ty for Ty Warner, the creator of Beanie Babies. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that part.
No idea.
I didn't know that was T.Y.
Ty, you making a comeback. Babyland General Hospital was the birthplace of what line of collectible dolls?
Answer.
Yes.
Cabbage Patch.
That is correct.
Wow. Good job.
I was not going to get that one.
Included an individual birth certificate.
I might have gotten it after that.
That's all I wanted for Christmas one year, and I got one.
All right, we have 4 questions left. Bill has 4, Cameron has 3, Talia has 3.
Ooh.
Wow.
It is a close game. Okay,
This
here we
close.
go. Last 4. This is a good one. Name the electronic handheld toy whose name is a blend of the Japanese words for egg and watch. You're going to know it when I say it. These were a hit when we were in middle school. You might have been in elementary school, Cameron. Okay. Sorry.
Hold on.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a
Tamagotchi.
second. What?
Tamagotchi.
That is correct.
Oh, I was thinking Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi.
Sorry, I didn't say answer, but no one else
No
was
one
answering.
else.
All right.
I never
Cameron.
had one, but all my friends had one.
Yes.
It was like the equivalent of the way that people treat their cell phones now, where they just never stop looking at them.
Yes. It was an obsession,
Yeah.
for sure.
Isn't that like your pet?
It's a
Didn't you
pet.
it's a pet.
Yeah, you're like taking care of it
Yeah. You didn't say pet in the question though.
in
did
your
you?
pocket. No.
Okay.
I called it a toy.
Okay.
Are you critiquing my questions, Bill?
No. I would have gotten
Do I
it.
need
I
to
was
give
thinking
you a minus
Tamagotchi,
point?
but then it was like, well, no, Tamagotchi's not it because you didn't say the pet part. So anyway, all right.
I don't appreciate that. All right, next question. What is the name of the gel-filled latex rubber action figure made by Hasbro
Answer.
who can be elongated from 15 inches to almost 5 feet?
Stretch Armstrong.
That is correct.
Had one of those.
Cameron takes the lead.
They have very gooey syrup like stuff inside of them. It's real weird.
Really weird toys. I had one too.
The reason that they say up to 5 feet is because they do explode if you.
I was going to say
overextend them.
every kid has tested this. Every kid's tested this.
That's funny.
Stretch Armstrong is real gooey inside.
All right. The penultimate question. What toy with an onomatopoeic name first sold in the 1960s consists of a tube, colored straws, and marbles? Talia's gasping as if she knows the answer.
I can picture it.
Don't bang the table.
Sorry. I don't know what it's called though.
I can picture it too.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you pull them
Yeah.
out and they.
No
3,
idea the name of it.
2, 1. The answer is Kerplunk.
Yes.
Kerplunk, yeah.
Dang
Oh,
it.
good. I definitely didn't know that one.
Never played Kerplunk?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Well, that's a fun game.
It is fun.
Yep.
How come it's not on your shelves? Everything
should
else
be.
is.
All right, this is the last question. Cameron is in the lead. Bill, you're in second. You can tie. Ty, you're just playing for honor at this point. But you can do it. I believe in
Which
you.
we knew was going to happen.
I know. It was fun. All right, last question. What toy ball made of about 2,000 rubber filaments, was invented by engineer Scott Stillinger to help his kids play catch. Rubbery filamentous ball. Ooh, I thought somebody would get this one.
Oh, I know what it is. I just don't remember what it's
I
called.
can't picture any ball that's like
It's
that.
I answer.
Yes.
Is that called a koosh?
It's a koosh ball.
Because I was like, what would
All the
make
little-
it? What would make it easier to? But it is easier to catch
It is
because it has all
100%
of those
easier.
things. It doesn't bounce
Well,
as much.
the balls have the strings on the end
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, they have those like
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're
When
making a
it's-
cutback, actually.
Are they?
koosh balls.
Yes, 100%.
I could see it being like a alternate to the fidget spinners or something
Yep.
like that because they're very soothing to hold.
Yeah.
Man, I can't remember.
fine.
I pulled
Man,
that one out
lost
of
it.
my head from the '90s. Wow.
Well, Bill, like most of the board games we played, you got off to a strong start, and then you totally fell apart at the end, as expected.
Oh, man, you
But
lost.
that
so
analogy-
many of this
It's
round.
getting late.
That
so
analogy breaks down because I'm normally last in all the board games that we play.
congratulations, Cameron. Thanks for playing, Bill. Talia, thanks for coming out.
Thanks,
Glad I could
thanks
be
for
here.
joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks again, listeners, for understanding that Talia and I were sharing a mic there. So if she sounded like she was far away, we apologize. But I thought it would just be fun to bring her in and have three people going at it. So
It's way funner than just having Chris, I will say that.
100%.
So thank you. Yes, that would.
No doubt.
I'm lame.
Merry
Thank you,
Christmas,
Talia.
Talia.
Merry Christmas,
Yeah.
guys.
Merry Christmas. Well, that was awesome fun, Chris.
Yes, that was exciting.
That was exciting.
Came down
Yeah.
to it. I think there was only one question that didn't get an answer.
I appreciated
Yeah.
everyone had a fair game at knowing
Teasing
the
me.
answers.
I tried to move it around a little bit, but I was trying to think what to do because we've done a few of these now, and I was like, well, I could do just toys, you know, like Christmas toys, and
Yeah.
It was well
see
done.
where we do
I'm
with
kicking
that.
myself for Etch-a-Sketch. It's like, oh my God, how can I not get that one?
I
All right.
never was good at the Etch-a-Sketch, but
No, I wouldn't.
it's a fun toy.
That was one of those ones that I was surprisingly good at, but also was like, okay, I spent all this time, and now if I want to enjoy it, I have to just leave it here. I can't erase it. I can't
Right.
save it. Well, should we review these games?
Let's do it.
Sweet. Stocking stuffers!
Let's do it.
You roll the dice and write the result on the notepad. That's all. And yet, Tetrix develops an unexpected depth and excitement because your fellow players use the exact same dice result. But who fits the geometric shapes more cleverly into their grid? Do you have the edge with your tactics? It remains exciting right up until the last dice roll.
Nice.
That was very exciting.
Did you guys like my German?
Thank you, Google Translate. What an amazing tool.
That was very-
Incredible,
So
yeah.
that was the straight translation?
The direct translation with Google Translate. Yeah.
Right off the back of the box.
That's right.
Yeah, impressive. Mosaics, also known as Tetrix. That's actually what my copy is called, but if you search it on BGG, you will find it as Mosaics with an
an
X.
Right.
Yes. Mosaix. Published in 2009 by Schmidt Spiele. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 5,037. Designer of this game is Christoph Tisch. This is his only design, or only notable design. He's got a couple of others that aren't even rated, but this is his main one. I would like to point out that this game was a Jim Miner recommendation on our BGG Guild, on our Jim Miner recommendation list that you can find on our BGG Guild. Daryl Boone of Board Gems on YouTube recommended this game, and this was a good time to do it because this game definitely would fit in a stocking.
Cool.
It's very small, and so we decided to review it.
I feel like it's been a while since we've done one of Daryl's recommendations.
It has
we
been.
did a lot of his recommendations earlier on.
Earlier, yeah. All right. Brief rule summary for Mosaics, and this will be pretty brief. Mosaics is a roll and write geometry puzzle where the players are trying to fit groups of shapes into a tight 7x7 grid. At the start of the game, each player will receive a sheet showing a 7x7 grid of squares, with one of the squares randomly filled in with either a circle, a triangle, or a square. In addition to the sheets, the players will also share 4 six-sided dice. So it's important to note that on 2 of the sides are a triangle, 2 of the sides show a circle, and then 2 of the sides show squares. Okay? All the dice look the same. The active player will roll these dice one time and then arrange them however they choose, but they cannot change the facing of any rolled dice. So let's say I rolled 2 circles, a triangle, and a square. I can take those 4 dice and I can put them in any Tetris type shape that I wanted. So I can make like a straight line. I could put them in a square. I could make like an L shape or a T shape, however you want. You can organize those dice in whatever way you want. You just can't change the facing, obviously, once they're rolled. Once the dice are set, all players, not just the player that rolled, but all players will then take that arrangement of symbols and fit it somewhere into their 7x7 grid. So it's important to understand that you can rotate these things 90 degrees to get them to fit into your grid if you so choose. You have to place. If you're legally able to place, you can't pass. And then one very important rule that adds some subtlety to the game is that you can place the structure partially off of, quote unquote, the board. So a very simple example would be, let's say that I lined all 4 of my dice up in a straight line, but I don't want to use all 4 of those dice. I just want to use 2 of them. I can use 2 of the dice on the end and then have the other 2 going off of the board or outside of the grid, and then that will allow me just to ignore those dice.
Right.
You can position the structure in such a way that you can omit dice if you don't want to use them. Okay?
However, you don't get points for those.
Correct,
which you're about to talk about.
You're tossing those out of the game, which is important also from a strategy standpoint, which I'm sure we'll mention. Player will continue on this way until either one player has completely filled in their board or they cannot make a legal move with the arranged dice. Then scoring, as Cameron just mentioned, will take place. The way this game scores is very straightforward. For each shape, circles, squares, and triangles, you will look at each individual group of that symbol that you have, and you will score it if that group has at least 5 symbols in it. So if I had a grouping of circles that was just 3 circles, that would not score me anything. But let's just say, for example, I had a group of circles that was 5 circles, and then I had another group that had 7 circles in it. That's 2 groups. So for circles, that would be 2 times the total number of circles between both of those groups. So that would be 2 times 12, because there were 7 in one and 5 in the other. So I would get 24 points for circles. You do that for all the shapes, total your score. Whoever has the most points wins the game. And that's how you play Mosaics.
Good job, Chris.
We probably could have played Mosaics in
Yeah,
that amount
right.
of time.
It's pretty quick playing game, filler style for sure. So we've played a few roll and writes on the podcast. We played many outside of the podcast. It's a very popular genre, obviously. So how do you think this roll and write compares to others that you played? Does it remind you of anything? What kind of things did you like about this particular implementation of the roll and write genre?
Yeah. I think what's kind of cool about this particular game mechanism is that it can be applied to games of kind of like varying complexity. So I would say this one falls kind of on the more simplistic end of that spectrum.
To understand how to play.
Correct. Well,
Right.
and I mean, and in terms of the actions that you take and
Right.
so forth, and the thought processes, I can think there are other games that have a lot more going on, a lot sort of more branches of things to consider
Right.
as you take each turn. But because it's on the simpler end of things in terms of complexity, the game plays really quickly.
It does.
Which is pretty neat and definitely nice to see, kind of like a true filler.
Yeah. What do you think, Bill?
I will say it reminded me a lot of cartographers in that you flip over a card, you have a certain shape that you got to fit in your board
Yeah.
to accomplish a certain goal.
Totally.
That one has more like hidden objectives, and to your point, Cameron, it's certainly more complicated, I guess, in a quote unquote sort of way than this one is. But I appreciated the puzzle nature of it, and the
Yeah.
fact that you're creating the shape of the dice that really you want to fit your board, because as the game goes on, people who are shaping their own dice for their board are creating really weird
Yeah.
weird conditions.
They
for
don't
you.
care about how you want things to fit together.
Exactly. And so, and you don't care about theirs. And as a matter of fact, you want to do the thing that is absolutely worst to them. And it's nice that, if you're 3 players, 4 players, or 5 players, that every once in a while you get to shape it to something that kind of works for you, kind of thing. So I love that dynamic. I thought they did a good job with that. So
I think the thing that really impressed me the most about this game and that really stuck out to me is, if you think about it, just being honest, maybe I'm being hyperbolic. If you feel like I am, call me out. But this is really a game of almost infinite possibilities on your turn. Because if you're the active player and you're the one that's rolling, first you have the choice of, how am I going to organize these dice, of which there are numerous permutations, depending on how you order them, right?
Because you can mirror it or whatever.
So you've got different shapes, but then how do you arrange the shapes within that Tetris shape, right? I mean, we're talking numerous possibilities. Then add on to that the myriad different ways you can incorporate that into your 7x7 grid.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that you have the option of playing part of the structure off of the grid.
Yeah.
So and Bill, you talk about this a lot, depth to complexity ratio. Cameron, I totally agree with you. Game is super simple to learn. You can play it with kids. I played it with my kids numerous times. But there is a lot to think about here.
there is.
This game is very deep for such a simple rule set. I was really impressed because there's just so many ways you can go in this game to try to get your spatial puzzle to work. It really impressed me.
Yeah, and I love games that are like that. That make you think like that. It's it's very cool.
I liked. Did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I was thinking about trying to clarify my initial statement, because what I meant, is definitely not that this game is easy or overly simplistic, but that there's just not that many different things happening. Like, there's one thing to focus on.
It's easy to play, harder to play it well.
Yes.
I mean, if you know this game...
It's almost closer to an abstract in the sense that, like, it's like, who can do this one thing, like, the best?
Yeah.
Basically. And I did like that there was that sort of strategic element of, like, what works great for me, and how can I get everyone else to smack their forehead and go, no, just not that way,
Yeah, you can definitely get better at this game. I mean, when I was playing with my kids and us, we were scoring like in the 80s. I played a game with Knox. He scored like 120-something points.
Wow.
Like, because he learned.
Right.
It's just that kind of game, like he was learning. And there's a lot of things to think about. I mentioned playing off the board, which is a really great option. But if you overuse it, you can screw yourself.
Yeah.
Because every time you throw away a die, you're getting behind in tempo, right? So you might get to the end of the game where if you passed on dice too much by putting them off your board, where you have a lot of empty spaces on your board and somebody has filled theirs in, that can cost you the game, right?
They're easy.
So it's
because
nice
it
to have it.
a multiplier, potentially.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, truly, it's so hard to listen to this audibly and put all these things in your head. But really, as the game progresses, like, you have X's and O's and diamonds, and you're trying to protect all 3 of those different islands of those shapes on your board.
Yeah, elaborate.
Yeah, as you're putting them out there. And so when you get these shapes, you don't want one X island that you have accidentally bumping into merge with another X island, so that it's there. Or you don't necessarily want it to be too big. I mean, if you're playing it optimally, you want to have like 3 X islands and 3
that are all like size 5.
Yeah.
Exactly, all size 5 is the perfect way to play this game, which you can never do. But when
you can.
Well, maybe if things work out right.
Knox did it.
Yeah, but I'm sure you can't do that every game.
But you're making a good point, and that part of the challenge of this game is in knowing that, how do I put my shapes into the grid where I don't inadvertently merge?
Right.
Which is really hard to
Uh-huh.
figure out that spatial, especially when a lot of your board is empty.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of freedom, but then you also have to be thinking like several steps ahead. Like, if I put this here, am I going to accidentally have to fuse these two things, right?
Because I think the initial inclination is to say, let me grow this place over here to 5, and then I'll move over here to do this one 5, and I'll go over here and move this one to 5. And oftentimes that's the wrong way to go.
The dice don't like that.
Right, exactly. You need to like maybe place seeds of things over there and just trust in the future that it's going to happen, which is just really weird and abstract kind of things. So it's very much a fuzzy logic kind of game, I think.
Yeah.
So, you hear that? Any, should we go to dislikes?
Sure.
Anybody?
Anything you didn't like? I'll mention one thing while we're thinking.
Okay.
I think it's a good sign, interesting sign that we're having to think so hard. I'll mention this as a caveat.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't bother me, but you have to be aware there's a phenomenon that can occur in this game. I mentioned in the rules that you can rotate structures 90 degrees to fit them in your board, and that's very legal. But there are some structures like the L that you can inadvertently mirror image that. That is not legal, where it's a mirror image of it. And people that have a harder time with spatial things may accidentally do that and then feel bad or get frustrated because they keep mirror imaging things just because their brain struggles with that kind of spatial thing. And so I would just throw that out there as a caveat that some people might get frustrated because they're constantly wanting to flip the structure instead of rotate it. So you just need to be aware of that, I think.
Yeah, I will say I had difficulty with that and had to really concentrate on it when you're taking like the L or the stair steps or something and turning it upside down and twisting it all around in your head and you're trying to put it down. It's it can be tricky.
I think that one of the things that is great about this game is that you can play it really quickly. The temptation is to keep playing it. And my feeling about it is that because of the difficulty and in terms of, especially if you're playing with really smart people like I do when I come to game night, is that you're just like, okay, I have to be like really on my game, and like I don't want to keep doing that like a ton. But maybe that's just where I'm at in life, I guess.
Yeah, we rolled out like 3 in a row.
Right, yeah. And so I think I started feeling some sort of mental fatigue of like trying to do that like type of optimization over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can see that.
All right. Final thoughts time. Bill.
Oh, me.
Kick us off.
All right. Well, I thought this was an awesome filler game and a great stocking stuffer. Certainly from a footprint size, it would absolutely fit into it. It's also so simple to teach. I mean, hopefully you caught that from Chris's description of it. And it's easy to grasp what you're doing and what you're trying to do when you're at the table. And to me, it's awesome for all ages. I mean, I'm sure all your kids could have played this easily.
Yep, all of them.
So to me, this is an awesome family game. This is kind of a hidden gems thing. For me, I find our scale difficult because, when you have a game like this that I think is so awesome, it's so hard to compare with something like Medina or something like that, because this is meant to be what it's meant to be, right? And so it's a filler game. It's super short. The rules are so tight and it's elegant. It feels weird for me to give it such a high score because it's so simple. But I'm going to give it a 5 because what it's meant to be is a short filler game, and it's supposed to be kind of exercise your spatial abilities and I don't know, play quickly, and it just does that all so well. So I mean, I loved it. So,
nice.
Anyway, that's what I'm going to give it.
Nice, Bill. Like it.
Cool. Yeah. So for me, I also really enjoyed this one. I might not give it quite as high of marks as Bill, just because of that fatigue thing, but one of the things that we try to do on this show is kind of evaluate games for what they're trying to be, for what they are. And I certainly try to not judge games on what I wish they would be. And I think this one is trying to be this kind of quick teach, quick get in, quick get out. It's a small footprint. You can toss it in a travel bag when you go on a trip and pull it out and whatever. And it's challenging and it's fun. And that's the other most important thing. There's no theme here, so I can't judge it for that. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't really have more thoughts than that. I'm going to give it a 4.
Nice.
I'd play it right now if you guys want to.
That's a 4. I love it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll echo everything you guys said. This game is awesome. This game is awesome. I was just really surprised by this one, I will say. It's a roll and write dice rolling game where the game really tasks you with there really are no bad rolls in this game. There are rolls where, especially at the end of the game, you're really wanting to roll a certain shape.
Yeah.
So you could say, oh, I got unlucky with my die roll. But really what the game is tasking you is with just trying to figure out on this roll, how can I do the best with what I am presented with? Mm-hmm. And everyone is feeling that pain pretty much equally.
Mm-hmm. But you have so many options to try
and
to
that's
get that
what's
done.
so great about it, right? The game never ceased to amaze me the more and more I played it, of how much more forward thinking I was thinking. Obviously not knowing what I was going to roll, but just trying to think in my head, how is this mosaic going to form, right? What am I going to try to put over here? What am I going to try to put over here? Mm-hmm. And like Bill said, fuzzy logicking that out was just really, really fun. Mm-hmm. Not to mention I played this game with my kids like probably 10 times. Mm-hmm. And it was really awesome to play competitively with them and watch them learn. Like I said, Knox just beat the crap out of me one game because he just got a lot better.
Yeah.
He just learned. You know what I mean?
He's your chess player too, right?
Yeah. He's just really good at that.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to give this game a 5 also. I think this game is excellent. I'm happy to have it. I think for a filler, it's pretty fantastic.
Wow. So all right. Not going to trade that for Igor, huh?
Heck no.
Well, speaking of which, if folks out there want to pick it up and give it a shot, where can folks get it?
Yeah, so there are copies available at Noble Knight Games. Ooh. So Noble Knight, they're our sponsors. You pick up a copy from them. You please use our discount code HOLIDAYGEMS24. Get 10% off your order. We would appreciate you supporting them. It helps us as well. And then also 8 copies on the BGG Marketplace. I will also note that on BGG, this game is listed as getting a reprint with a retheme called Gemstone Caverns, where the shapes are replaced like by different gems of different colors. But there's not a lot of posts about it right now, so it's kind of one of those things I think was announced that it was coming, but now it's just kind of gotten quiet.
Since we like it so much, should we reach out to them and see if they want to do a co-branding?
Dude, that would be awesome. Maybe we should.
Hidden Gems. It'll be the 2025 Hidden Gems reprint.
You know, there's like the Dice like Tower Essentials. We can do like the Hidden Gems Essentials. You know,
you get Haggis, Tetrix, anything that is really small.
Dude, I would put my name on this 100%. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sweet.
Well, I will say there's one on Noble Knight, and I have it in my shopping cart now.
Oh, boy. Bill, don't do that to our listeners.
Bill's going to snipe it.
I'm just kidding, Bill. Go for it. You better act fast, people. All right. Those are our thoughts on Mosaics.
You are garbage collectors whose task is to place recycled goods in their proper waste disposal facility. But you have to watch how much garbage you carry, or you will overload your truck and then have to dump the excess materials illegally. Not a good thing if you want to become the only authorized garbage collector in the city.
Awesome.
That is good.
The cake is a lie.
That's right. You're the automated response on like some electronic car in some movie.
I'm sorry. I didn't understand that.
Can you say that again?
Oh, it's our AI overlord in the room with us.
That's awesome. Good job, Cameron. All right. R Echo, published in 2003 by Amigo and Z-Man Games. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 2,570. Designer of this game is Susumu Kawasaki. This person has designed Traders of Osaka.
Really? That's him? Oh, that's cool.
Which we reviewed on the podcast.
Oh, man.
And also another game I really want to try that I've heard about before called, it's either Robotory or Robotery. I'm not really quite sure how you pronounce it, but I've heard people talk about it, and it seems interesting. This is a very special review. So if you're familiar with the podcast, remember a few episodes back, we changed our tiers, and we had mentioned that our Gold Miner tier, which is kind of like our middle intermediary Patreon tier, which is $5, I think.
I think it's...
Or is it...
I can't remember.
We should know that off the top of our head. Go to Patreon and check it out.
It's 2, 5, and 10.
Yeah, $5. You get a guaranteed review for the podcast, and that's what this one is. So, and this one is very special because this is an awesome listener So Evan goes by the handle Evan Diesel, who's very active on our Discord. And I also want to plug his content. He has a pretty active Instagram, and particularly on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel that he does with his family, Grayson and Missy, where they talk about board games. And he has a very eclectic kind of a taste very similar to ours. He plays a lot of the newer stuff, but he also has an appreciation for the old stuff like we do, and a lot of the more kind of hidden, unusual, weird games that we talk about on
our
here.
Echo's really old, isn't it?
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah, I thought it was super old.
Yeah. And Evan also reps our merch, which we really appreciate on his channel sometimes and at cons. So, Evan, thank you for being an awesome listener and supporting us, and please check out Evan's stuff on YouTube. Also, I want to mention, if you are a gold miner, email us, Hidden Gems Board Game Podcast at Gmail, and tell us what game you want us to review.
Yeah, we can't do your review if you don't let us know.
If you don't tell us, we can't do it. So if you want to get a shout out and get a game reviewed, please email us. We'll add it to the spreadsheet, and we'll get you in there. Okay?
Woo!
All right.
Also, thanks to our Patreons.
Yes, thank you.
Patreon.com/Hidden Gems Podcast.
And come hang out in Discord. But,
yeah, talk on the Discord. All right. Brief rule summary for our Echo. Our Echo is a card game where the players are attempting to place sets of recycling cards onto one of 4 different recycling factories in order to score points. This is an interesting theme. The card deck in our Echo is made up of 88 cards in 4 colors. So there are 22 cards per suit, with 19 of those cards having a value of 1, and 3 of those cards having a value of 2. And these different colors are different recycling things like aluminum cans and paper and cardboard and stuff like that. The 4 factory cards are placed face up in the center of the playing area, and each factory has a unique color which corresponds with one of the 4 suits in the card deck. On top of each factory is a stack of victory point chips, with each chip matching the color of the factory. And again, this stack of chips has a very specific order, and it's the same for all 4 factories. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, -2, 4, 5. Okay? Each player draws 3 cards from the deck, and play begins. On a player's turn, they must play 1 or more recycling cards above one of the 4 factory cards. So if you want to play blue recycling cards, you play above the blue factory. Okay? So let me explain what this looks like. When you're playing cards to a factory, you can play as many cards as you want to that factory as long as you have that many colored cards in your hand. So if I have 1 blue card, I can play 1 blue card above the blue factory. If I have 2 blue cards, I can play 1 or I can play 2. If I have 5 blue cards, I can play all 5 above the factory if I choose. Why are we doing this? Well, if the total sum value of the cards above the factory is equal to 4 or greater, you get to take the top chip off of the victory point stack for that factory and put it in front of you. It's important to understand that cards carry over between players. So if I play 2 cards to the blue factory, remember you need 4 to take the chip, those 2 blue cards will stay there until somebody exceeds the number 4, and then they all get cleared. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Once the cards are played, the player will then take any cards that are present below the factory that they played to. So what determines what cards are present below a factory? Well, let's go back to my prior example. Let's say I play 2 blue cards to the blue factory. Not enough to take the victory point chip. Once I do that, I will then take the cards that were below the factory, and then new cards will get added equal to the number of symbols played to the factory plus 1. So since I played 2 blue cards, I will add 2 plus 1, 3 cards at random below the blue factory. Okay? That's how it works. And that's important. It's not trivial. All right? Once the player has taken their cards from below the recycling factory and added them to their hand, they must check their hand size against the hand limit. If the player has more than 5 cards in their hand, they must dump the excess cards from their hand until they again have a hand size of 5. These cards are played face down in front of the player, And at the end of the game, each card that a player had to dump will result in 1 negative point.
That's dumping trash, by the way.
Yes.
We're like trying to recycle.
Yeah, instead of recycling, you are illegally dumping and harming the environment. What a jerk, which is why you're getting negative points. Play will continue on in this way until one player has taken the bottommost 5-point chip from one of the 4 recycling factory stacks. Play then immediately ends and the players total their points. So scoring really quickly. You score points equal to the face value of the victory point chips that you took. However, it's important to note that for each color, you only score points for those chips if you have at least 2 chips of that color. So, for example, if I had the yellow 5 victory point chip, and that's the only yellow chip I had, that's no points. You need at least 2 of a color for it to score. So it's your victory point chips minus 1 point for any cards that you dumped. And then there's one little special non-dumping bonus. If you never dumped over the course of the whole game, you will get points, depending on player count, for every other player who did dump over the course of the game. Taking dumps. So I'm saying that over and over again. So it sounds kind of funny. All right. That's how you play Art Echo. All right. So if you listen to the rules, you may not have. It's okay. I get it. But if you listen to the rules, I hope you appreciate it. This is kind of a weird game. This is a weird game.
Unusual.
It's unusual. This falls in the unusual category for sure. I've never played a game like this. It's just a weird take on card play, which makes sense. This is why we did an Asian designers episode, because they just think differently. They just have neat ideas. You know what I mean? So I'm glad we played this one. And there's a lot of different ways we could go here, but I think where I want to start is one of the more interesting decisions in this game, I think. And this is this issue of dumping. And so, just to reiterate, if your hand size ever exceeds 5, you must dump cards, which eliminates your opportunity for the bonus at the end of the game, and it's a negative point for every time you do that. So you may be thinking to yourself, well, I want to avoid that at all costs. And you might, but maybe not. And that's just my thoughts. I don't know. And that's kind of where I want to start. What did you guys think about the strategy behind do I dump, do I not dump, managing your hand size and your hand limit? What do you think about that?
So I'm going to start by thanking Evan for this game, because I do feel like from Hidden Gems' point of view and like playing cards games like this is so unusual really and so unique, cool. Yeah. And I mean, I love the rule set for it, and I always get excited and find it really fun when I play a game like this. And so I really appreciate the recommendation. I think, that managing that 5-card count really is kind of gets at the soul of the game.
Yeah,
because
totally.
when you're looking at the cards there, you're wanting to pick up a chip. There are cards that are out there that are being displayed, and when you pull those into your hand, that leads you to the next play that you're going to play. But all of it is having you do the calculus of, when I play, am I going to have a low card count once I've done it? Because you're trying to get a bunch of cards of the same color to play at once, so that you can basically empty out your hand if you possibly can. It would be the perfect way to do it, and then pick up a chip, and then almost starting from scratch again. That's not quite true, because you need cards in your hand to go to the next step. So you're really looking down to the next step. So it is this really fun, interesting, weird tightrope that you're walking. It's a fascinating puzzle as you're looking at it.
It definitely is. It's a tough puzzle, and it's a fuzzy logic for sure, because, it's funny. We went all over the place in this game with hypothesizing about what certain circumstances would mean. So what I mean by that is, for example, we were saying, well, if somebody never has to dump, they're going to win for sure. That was not true. We had people never dump the whole game and lose, right?
We had a theory at the beginning that there was impossible not to dump.
And that was the other thing. We were like, how, the first time we played this, we were dumping like crazy because we sucked. And we were like, how do you not ever dump in this game?
And then we ran it back, and then I did it.
And then you did it, right. And you did win that game without dumping, but then we played another game where I never dumped and I did not win.
Right.
Which it was good to see that.
Yeah.
Because that means that's not one-dimensional.
Yeah.
That's not like King, right? It's good to not dump, but it's
also a needle you can't necessarily thread every time. I mean, there
well,
were times.
Sometimes it's impossible.
Yeah, there were
right?
times where it's like I really, really don't want to dump, but I have a bunch of cards in my hand that I can't play to get rid of them, and also I can only play and pick up 3 more cards.
But yeah, I agree. But I think the point I'm making is that there are times in this game where you could play somewhere and kind of spin your wheels a little bit and not have to dump, but you're not making progress.
Right.
Or you could dump, get a chip, and then pick up some more cards that might help you. And that's, I think, probably the main decision point in this game is like, when do I do that?
Yeah.
And so it was like an interesting puzzle there.
I definitely think that, like, even beyond sort of that introductory topic of balancing when you're dumping, I will say that, like, I think one of the main things that you're looking to do in this game, like, where you place and what chip you pick up is almost less important than what cards are you getting out of your hand and what cards are you going to pick up in your hand. Because what you want to try to establish, and it's very difficult to do, is a rhythm where you're dumping a big chunk of cards out of your hands, which usually gets you a chip, and then picking up a whole different set of cards. So it's
hopefully not a rainbow, right?
Correct. Right, where there's something that you're picking up that's stacking a color, any color in your hand.
Yeah, I think as you play this game, you're trying to get that perfect thing, right? Let's say there's 2 on blue now, and you have a bunch of cards in your hand. Your perfect thing would be like to lay down 3 or 4, eat something above 4 to pick that up, because you want to have net less cards after you pick that up. What did you guys feel about the -2 being in the stack of?
Yeah, this is a good thing to talk about.
The cast of coins. Did you feel like it from a design decision point that it was a good idea, bad idea? I mean,
yeah, I have thoughts on this. I actually had this in my cons, and I'll explain why. I could see how I think different people would have different opinions on this. It's a mild con, but I get what they're trying, or what this designer was trying to do by incorporating this -2 as kind of like a point of contention. You know, you're rolling towards picking up chips, and now you have to stop, right? And like, how are you going to adjust to that thing that you don't necessarily want to get? I get the idea behind it. But in execution, I don't feel like it played the way I would like, or I didn't enjoy the way it played out, because it felt like to me that once we got to that point, all the stacks kind of get to -2 at kind of the same time.
Right.
And so cards just kind of build up on them until the dam breaks and somebody just has to take it.
It
right?
requires like kind of everybody to dump.
So everybody is like,
of course,
is like stalling. And again, I get the point of it, but I just don't know if I found that to be enjoyable. Right. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like I'm playing avoidance now. Now, it's true that I could say, well, I can take this yellow -2 because it's the only that I have, so it won't lose me any points. I don't have any other yellow chips. And that's fine. That's a strategic point, I guess. But now I've just created a release valve, right? Where yellow is now safe to play on, right? So I don't know.
I love that the -2 is in there. To me, it's a fantastic design choice, and I certainly wouldn't have thought of it. And I think it's an interesting design point. I totally get the fact that it is breaks for all of us, but it is also okay, I know these are coming. How do I manage my cards so I can be the one who lasts the longest, so I don't pick up
Yeah, but you
cards?
can't plan for that completely.
Well, you kind of can.
No, you cannot. Well, you don't know how many cards people are going to play on each factory.
Oh, you don't, but you also know that I could take up this 4 stack and get points right now, but I'll have a bunch of cards in my hand, versus I'm going to forego picking up a point this time and pick up this 1 stack and just wait, and I'll only have 2 cards in my hand and kind of wait it out longer than somebody else. Or I'm going to pick up the stack where I see has multiple plays on like 2 different areas that I can have 2 more turns where I'm not going to pick up or something like that.
Yeah, but if somebody brings both of those stacks up in a 4-player game or even a 3-player game and brings both of those stacks up to 3, what are you going to do then?
Oh, true. It's an odds game.
You can't control that. I mean...
No, but you can play the odds.
I get what you're saying, but I question how much control you have over that.
This is a game
I
you don't have control.
I don't think that it's about having control. I think the reason that it's in there is because it creates these interesting social dynamics at the table, right? Because the other thing that happens with those is once the 2 is gone, then it becomes, okay, well, who's going to get the 4 and the 5, right? Because you could have a situation with someone who doesn't have any of that color. It's like they could become a risk to score 9 points. I think what it comes down to is like, do you like that?
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's the thing. It didn't do anything for me. I get what y'all are saying, but I just, Do
you think it would be a better game if you just raced to the 5?
Well, I think maybe instead of making a -2, why not ascend and then go back down or something? You know what I mean?
Like
because
it goes 1, 2, 3, 1.
Because -2 is more punishing in a kind of a low-scoring game.
Well, I could hear Chris saying, well, I mean, the pinnacle of the game was in the middle. Why do I even care about going to the end where I already know who's won the game?
Don't tell me what I think. I don't like your sass right now. You're getting a little bit of toot in your voice, and I don't appreciate it.
Were you here for that review?
I can tell you like this game, and that's great.
No, not necessarily.
I just, like I said, I mean, that's what happened every game. I get it. But it's
You're saying where it went 2, 2, 2, 2.
Yeah, -2, -2, -2, build, and then somebody like has to take one. You got it. I don't know. I just don't see that to be enjoyable.
It sounds like what you dislike about it, and tell me if I'm wrong, is the inevitability, it seems.
Well, right. Somebody's going to have to do it, right?
Happening.
Yeah, and everybody's avoiding it.
Just going ahead and just taking it.
Yeah, but then if you do that, you're giving people a way out, right?
Right.
And so just taking a -2 right off the top isn't necessarily a great play either, because that might even rush the end of the game, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird thing. We probably need to move on, but didn't do anything for me.
Okay.
Right.
I'm glad y'all liked it, though.
Or is there any other dislikes, since that was kind of bled over into dislikes?
Yeah, I'm going to mention one more thing real quick, because I have to, because I just couldn't get over this feeling of, well, I think we've done a good job of explaining that there are decision points in this game. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying it, okay? It did feel like on most turns, it seemed like there was an obvious play. Mm-hmm. If that's fair, I'm trying to be fair. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the game, I would say 80% of the game, I kind of felt like it was almost playing me. I was making the most sensical play. The other options just didn't make any sense, like at all. And I was like, this is the only thing that really makes sense here. I'm not saying there's not nuance there, but I felt like most of the time it seemed like there was an obvious play. And the reason I came to that conclusion, why I think I can justify that, is just how kind of all over the place we were. Mm-hmm. So, for example,
as far as winners?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We played one game. Bill beat us badly the first game. We played the next game. Bill got crushed. Did Bill just suddenly forget how to play our Echo? I don't think so. I think it was just how the cards came out. Mm-hmm. I never won this game one time amongst us, but I played it on Yukata. Mm-hmm. It's on Yukata. And I played it with experienced players who had numerous plays. I killed them in that one game.
Right.
And so I'm not sure that was because I played really well. Mm-hmm. I think it's just kind of how the cards came out. Mm-hmm. And so I just couldn't get away from that feeling of that happening in this game.
It's less, and I'm making this happen because I'm making strategic decisions. It's just, here's where I need to play. Those are the cards that I get. Okay, here's the state of the board now. Here are the cards in my hand. This is the obvious thing to do.
I think there are meaningful choices. Sometimes they're hard, but I think a lot of the time it's kind of obvious. Some of the time you think about it for a minute and you're like, I think this is the best course of action. And that's most turns.
It feels like you're in final thoughts. You want to just continue with your final thoughts?
I mean, I could. Do y'all want to say any more to that? I can just go
right
in.
I can put in my final thoughts.
Okay. All right. I'll just transition. So, final thoughts. This is a good segue into what I was going to say. This game reminds me a lot of a game called Six Nimmt. I don't think you've played it. Cameron, you've played it.
I have it.
Okay, you have it.
Yeah.
Okay. It plays very differently from Six Nimmt. But the reason why it reminds me of Six Nimmt is I played Six Nimmt a lot too, and I started to come to the conclusion in that game that once you learn it and start to figure it out, you learn what good play is, and then the deck just kind of decides if you're going to be successful or not. And that's kind of how I started to feel in this game. Now, having said that, I will say I didn't not enjoy playing this game. Mm-hmm. Like, when we were playing it, I was much like Six Nimmt, right? Like, it's kind of just fun to see how it shakes out. Mm-hmm. But for me personally, I like to have a little bit more agency in a game. And so because of that, much like with Six Nimmt, I ended up getting rid of it. And it pains me to say this because I think it's a clever, interesting game. And Evan, I think you're awesome. You're awesome. You and your family are great. But I got to be true to myself. I'm giving this game a 3. It was just okay for me. I wanted to like it more, but I just couldn't get away from that. The game is playing me feeling. My opinion.
It's fair.
All right, Bill, tell me why I'm wrong.
No. Well, all right. I'm going to read it from my things just so you're not thinking that I'm making stuff up. So I marveled at the design of this.
Yeah.
And when I look at a game like this and the way that it plays and such new ideas, I just thought it was super cool. I think it's pretty cool in its simplicity because of what you do. Everything's. But I also think that's a double-edged sword because I think at times your decision space is pretty small.
Yeah.
However, there are moments when you get to where you decide if the points you're going to pick up are worth the cards you're going to get in your hand, and that part's
the biggest decision in the game.
The biggest decision in the game, and that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Here's where I struggle. What I struggle with is if the game has legs because of that, the simplicity of that. How long does that struggle or that decision space last? Because there were lots of games where, like you're saying, it was obvious what I should do. Sometimes almost the whole game. The game that I lost really badly, I ended up in that loop that you're talking about, Cameron, where I would play a blue card down to pick up a blue card, and it was just a single card loop, and it was just painful. But I do think there's strategy in this game, so it is so interesting, the whole double-edged sword on this. I mean, it's great that it's such a short game. I think it's a great game to have on your shelf because it's like you pull it out and people are like, well, I've never seen a game like this. This is pretty darn cool.
Easy to teach. Yeah.
Easy to teach, and people will just think it's cool, I think, because of its design. But Chris, I have to kind of come in with you. I hate to agree with Chris on Gambler Game, but I'm going to give it a 3 as well.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, but I'll give it a 3 as well. I mean, I think it's. Again, I'm so conflicted because I think it's such a cool game, and for a game that I admire for its design as much as I admire this one for, it's hard for me to give it that 3.
Yeah,
but
same.
It comes down to that decision space, I guess.
Yeah, same.
So anyway, but thanks, Evan. I feel better for you having recommended this to us.
I think between Bill and I, we can both say it's worth trying.
Absolutely. And I think it's worth having in your collection in a way because especially if you're just pulling it out to show people.
Because a lot of people love Six Nymphs. I'm just kind of on it, but it's a loved game. And again, it reminds me of that game a lot. It really does.
I think where I would go with my final thoughts on this one is that I think I hear what you guys are saying in terms of what you're calling limited decision space, because I think it's true. You don't have like a plethora of directions you can go on every turn. One of the things that we didn't talk about is that we sort of have been talking about your turn as if we're going to assume that every time you're so incentivized because of this hand limit thing and dumping that you're only ever going to play all of one color
not necessarily.
on a turn.
Yeah.
And that that's this sort of automatic thing. And like the reality is that that's not true, because based on what's underneath it, you may want to go, okay, well, I'm going to pick up a green one, and then and there's a double green that I'm going to pick up. So I'm going to only play one of my greens, and then I'm going to pick these other ones up, and now I'll have 4 greens.
Yeah, go right back out.
And I'll
again.
go right back down. And then, and so that, I think that's where the decision space lies. Yeah. It's where could I go that's going to get me into that rhythm. And for me, I enjoyed that. Yeah. I had a lot of fun with it. I do agree with Bill as well in terms of this kind of unique design to the game. And I had a unique sort of experience with it in terms of series of plays. This is like the first time in a long time I've actually played it 3 times. And my experience with it was one of growth. The first time I felt like I had no clue. I felt like I was getting railroaded, kind of like what you guys are talking about. My second 2, I won the second one. And my third play, I felt competent. I felt like I was choosing my own destiny to a degree. Maybe I'm a bit delusional about that.
We could be wrong about that. But
successive plays may prove that, whether I feel that I have that amount of agency. But for me, I actually enjoyed this one. I liked getting to play it as many times as I did, and I would play it again. So I'm actually going to give it a 4.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have this.
Sticking to your guns.
Right. I'd have this in my collection anyway, just because I think other people like it.
Yeah.
Would this be a fair trade for iCord?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, okay. Deal's being made.
I'll make that deal. All right. Well, where can we get it? So, unfortunately, this game's a little older. Again, 2003. So there are no copies available at Noble Knight, unfortunately, but there are 12 copies on the BGG Marketplace, so you can still get it. All right, well, I think that is it. Those are our thoughts on our Echo.
Build a thriving civilization in under an hour. Collect goods, assign workers to build cities and erect monuments. Advance your civilization through cultural and scientific developments. But don't forget to harvest enough food to feed your growing population. Grab those dice and roll through the ages. In this fast-paced, addictive, and strategic game.
Yes.
Good job as always, Cameron.
One
So
more-
glad you're here.
One more David Attenborough for 2024.
I love it. Got to. You got to reuse the good ones. All right, Roll Through the Ages, the Bronze Age. Published in 2008 by Eagle Griffin Games. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 973.
This is Eagle
Just
Griffin.
inside.
In the top 1,000. I will say, I was conflicted about this one. I went back and forth in my own mind about whether we should review it, because when I first got into the hobby, this game was talked about a lot. Like, a lot. And I would imagine that most of the people listening to us right now who have been in the hobby for a while know this game and may have played it.
This one or the big board game?
This one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, which category is this? Is this forgotten?
I think so.
Okay.
Just because as time has passed, I mean, that was 2008, right? When it was graduating med
Sure,
school.
yeah,
I mean, that was a
yeah,
long
yeah.
time ago, right? It's kind of fallen off the radar.
Right.
And so I decided to include it. Okay. So we're going to review it. Designer of this game, Matt Leacock, designer of Pandemic,
Okay.
Interesting.
and among many other games. Lots of legacy games, lots of cooperative games, Thunderbirds, games like that, but definitely most known for Pandemic. All right. Brief rule summary for Roll Through the Ages. This will be pretty brief. There's not too much going on here. Roll Through the Ages is a Yahtzee-style dice rolling, roll and write, civilization building game where the players are trying to score victory points via intellectual developments and the building of monuments, all while avoiding negative disasters. All right, so real quickly before I get into the details, just to review Yahtzee-style dice rolling, if you're not familiar with this, basically you got to pull a dice, you roll them. You can keep some, you can re-roll some others. If you re-roll, you can then keep, re-roll what you want. Then once you've rolled the third time, you're stuck, you're locked in there, and you can't roll anymore, and you have to activate all those dice. Okay? All right. So really, the only thing left to do is explain what the dice faces do. Okay? So the only components in this game are the dice, and then you have a sheet of paper that's the right part of the roll and write, where you basically are Xing or checking off a lot of boxes based upon what you roll. Will let you X out some things to score points and do different things. So let's talk about that. So first, food. So food is important because food is what you use to feed the citizenry in your cities, and your cities are your dice. Okay? So at the start of the game, everybody has 3 cities, and that means that they are rolling 3 dice. However, you can build more cities over the course of the game, and as you do that, you roll more dice. But the catch is, for every city or die that you are rolling, you have to pay 1 food to feed that city. For food, you have one face will show 3 food, and another face has 2 food on it. Okay, if you come up short and you can't pay your cities, for every point you fall short, you take a negative disaster point.
Famine
Okay.
point. Yeah.
Famine point, right. Next, the workers. So how do we get these cities to where we get more dice? Well, it's through workers. So workers, again, much like food, you have one face that has 3 workers on it, or you have another face that has 2 workers on it. And you can use workers in one of 2 ways. You can X off little boxes on cities that once you fill in all the boxes, you get more dice. Or there's an area on your sheet that has monuments on it. And these are different structures of different numbers of boxes. Can it be anywhere from like 3 boxes all the way up to like 15 boxes. And if you allocate your workers to those monuments, if you fill in all the boxes associated with a monument, you have built it. and that will net you a certain number of victory points. More points if you're the first to do it. But if you get there after somebody else, you can still score it. You just don't get as many points. Third are the goods. So goods are like this little vase. And I'm not going to spend too much time here. Just understand that there's this whole second hardwood pegboard that comes with the game that tracks your goods. There's 5 different types of goods. They scale at different rates. So as the peg moves to the right, when you acquire goods, you get more and more of a certain material. And as that builds, you can turn that type of good in for money, basically, to buy developments. Okay? Just look at it online. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to explain it to you because it probably wouldn't make sense anyways. Just understand goods are another way of generating income. They compound, and that's all I'm going to say.
There's like 5 of them.
There's like 5 different types of goods. All right. Coins. Okay, so if you roll a coin, this is like goods, but it's just straight money. So every coin you roll is 7 coins. Okay? And again, you use coins and goods spent together to buy developments. This is probably one of the most thematic parts of the game. And that there's a list of things on your sheet, all these different civilizational advances like agriculture, engineering, leadership, things like that. And if you spend the right amount of money, you will X that thing, showing that your civilization has achieved that. You get a certain number of points, and then that will give you a static benefit for the rest of the game. So, for example, leadership will give you another reroll, like a single reroll of a die for the rest of the game. Or coinage. Now coins, when you roll them, are worth 12 instead of 7. They're just different benefits that you get. And then lastly, can't not mention this, are the skulls, or the disasters. Okay, any civilization game has to have disasters. It's part of the game, okay? Whether it's a board game or a computer game, right? So the way that these work, there's a couple things to know about skulls. If you roll a skull, it locks that die. So remember I was talking about the Yahtzee rolling where you can pick up and re-roll. A skull is locked. You cannot re-roll skulls. Another thing about skulls is that if you roll too many of them, they can hurt you, right? So, for example, if you roll 2 skulls, you'll lose 2 points in disasters. If you roll 4 skulls, you lose 4 points. Interestingly, if you roll 3 skulls, you actually hurt your opponents. Pestilence, right? And they'll lose 3 points. One other really, really important thing to understand about skulls is it's just not negative, though. They also have 2 goods icons pictured on them. So whenever you roll a skull, you'll get 2 goods to add to your goods income, basically. All right? So that's all the die faces. Play continues on in this way until one player has either claimed 5 developments or the players corporately have built all the monuments. Once this happens and the players have all had an equal number of turns, the game will end and the player with the most victory points wins the game. And that's how you play Roll Through the Ages.
Generally.
I will add that, and you maybe said it, but just to specifically say it, that you can sell your materials with your coins to buy developments.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Rolled coins plus whatever goods you have stored can be spent to buy developments. And then there are some rules about you can only have so many goods at any one time, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to get into all that. I know that's a rule.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just not getting into all the minutia. We'll cover it in the review, maybe.
Right.
All right. So, another dice roller. We've been rolling a lot of dice rollers lately. It's okay. It's interesting. But I think for this one, because we haven't done a lot of Civ games on the show, mostly because they're freaking long.
Yeah.
Like Sid Meier's Civilization is really long, right? Civ games are tend to be on the long side. This one's not, right? It's real fast, okay? So I guess I would start with, from a thematic standpoint, since we got Cameron on the show, how do you feel like this dice chucker captured the Civ theme? Do you think it did a good job?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I look for when I'm trying to evaluate the thematic elements of a game is if there are actual game mechanisms that are, that are named and also give you actions that align with how that thing is named. For example,
Yeah, give me an example.
Yeah, so we played a game last night of this, and I had the opportunity to pick up the masonry development. Mm-hmm. And what masonry lets you do is anytime you roll a dice that gives you people, it gives you more people. And on theme, when you have more people working on, let's say, large structures, you can build things faster.
Yep, right.
Let's say, right? And so in
Makes sense thematically.
In that game, I was able to build a lot of structures pretty quickly. And so it was like, okay, that feels good. You know, leadership, it's like you might have a little more influence over your cities, right? And your cities are your dice in this game. And so you have a little more influence. You can roll a dice and maybe control things a little bit more.
Yep.
I liked stuff like that. And I you could go down the whole list, particularly of those developments and I think find the theme there.
Yeah, I'll have to 100% agree. I will say that when I was growing up, and it's funny listening to you guys talk about your Switch-based games. I mean, mine was PC games, and all of those were turn-based games at the time because you couldn't do real-time games. And one of the biggest ones out there was Sid Meier's Civilization.
Yeah.
And so I just loved Civilization. That's like one of my games. And all of these developments in here are right out of the original Civilization, like irrigation and agriculture and all of those things just hit all those bullet points of that original Civilization.
Just like your brainstem is tingling.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh my god, this is my game right here now. So yeah, I mean the way they implemented this was just right on theme for me. So I was super excited playing this game from a theme point of view.
I was actually excited to introduce it to you because I had a feeling, because I knew that about you. You've said it many times how much you love those types of games, and because in our game group, even pre-podcast, we don't play a lot of Civ games again because they're just harder to get to the table.
Yeah.
I knew that you had not had a lot of experience in the board game format of Civ, so I was excited to see how you would see it play out on the table, which is cool. Another nice thematic thing they do is this idea behind feeding your cities, right? Because in a dice rolling game, you want to roll more dice, right? But the way they handle that mechanically and thematically is, well, yeah, more dice are great, but that's not necessarily without risks, right? Because if you have more cities, you have more people, and they need to be fed, and you're rolling all these extra dice, but if you can't feed them, your people are going to starve, and you're going to take negative points, right? And so while logically it makes sense that if you take on more dice, you're probably going to roll more food, and you often do, you can still, believe me, have rolls where you can't roll food to save your life, and you have all these cities, and you're taking negative points because your people are starving.
No, I mean, that catch-22 I thought was an awesome design decision. So yeah,
because you're also, you're getting extra dice to do other things, but again, the more dice you take on, the more dice you have to dedicate to food, which from a points scoring standpoint doesn't really do anything for you. It's just keeping you from not losing points, right?
Right.
So there's some interesting stuff going on there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There are a lot of things going on here that I think work well together, and I think that is one, the pro and con of that happening. The developments, I think, also all of the pluses that you get once you create a development just makes sense, and I feel like it's just designed super well. For instance, get irrigation. If you roll 2 different skulls, which would normally be a drought, you don't take a negative 2 points for that. So, and that frees you up that if you roll 2 skulls, then you can go for pestilence, which is going to be -3 for everybody else, right? So to me, the whole design path to let you say, okay, this is how you achieve different things, because you could ignore that and go a totally different path and win, which the last time we played, I went and kind of, I won't say ignored that path, but I don't know. To me, there's a few different paths on that development tree that will allow you to win, kind of thing.
And it's just total eye candy, right? I think the developments do a good job of when you read through them, you're like, oh,
right,
ooh, that looks cool. Oh, I want to do that. Like all of them are pretty sexy. It's just like they're fun to look at and think about.
Absolutely,
the possibilities, I guess. I will say one thing for me too. Disasters is a part of Civ games. You know, so you can't knock a game for a civilization game, whether it's a long one like Sid Meier's or whether it's a short one like this. If you don't have disasters and calamities and pestilence and things like that, it's not a Civ game, right? So it's good that that's in the game. Yeah. It should be.
Right.
But I do like it when games take negative faces of a die and at least gives you something decent, right? And so while you might roll 2 skulls on yourself and lose 2 points, you got 4 goods.
Which is huge.
Which is not trivial, right? So it softens a negative. And like you said, Bill, if you get your developments situated right, you can actually turn skulls into a good thing and even like an offensive weapon against your opponents. So I appreciated that the skull, basically what I'm saying is I'm glad that the skull face was not just a skull.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, then it would feel more punishing and probably not as enjoyable, right?
Yeah. It definitely balances that out. It's built-in mitigation, basically. Because if you roll enough of those, you're inevitably going to be sitting on a lot of goods.
Yeah.
Potentially. Because the way, and it's, I know we didn't get into
Our last
the
game,
whole
you
chart.
got a ton of goods like
Dude, yeah. Like the second turn, I got a 30, I think.
Well, you roll 4
Development.
skulls, which is minus 4 points, but it's 8 goods.
Right.
Which is an insane amount of goods.
Right. The whole point is that each of these different types of goods from the bottom to the top, like, they scale at different paces. And so when you get 8, you know, that could be upwards of 30-something points to spend on your stuff. And so it's interesting because what that's going to put you in a position for is like, yeah, you got a few disasters, but now you could potentially get a pretty powerful development.
Yeah.
You know, potentially fairly early on in the game, which that happened for me, and it was kind of fun to see like how that played out. So yeah, it's interesting mitigation.
Yeah. One other thing I mentioned before I guess we move into the cons, I just think we have to. We don't talk about this a lot on the show, is the aesthetic. It's cool. So it's totally unnecessary, but the game comes with these really chunky wooden boards with wooden pegs to track your goods. Again, completely unnecessary.
Right.
But they're well made, and they just look cool. And then wooden dice, which are pretty big, you know, blocky dice. Laser engraved, yeah. So it's a cool looking game. For as simple as it is. I think it's worth mentioning.
For a game that's based around you writing on a piece of printed paper.
Totally.
And rolling dice.
Yep. All right, what did you guys not like?
I will say, like, a few bad rolls feels like can absolutely kill your game.
100%. Especially early.
Yeah, early. Yeah. And I will say, it will certainly give you the illusion it will kill your game, and sometimes the reality is it'll kill your game.
For sure.
Yeah, because sometimes you can feel like my game is lost, and you could still really be in it without knowing it, but you certainly have that,
Give me an
that
example.
angst of...
What do you mean?
Oh, I mean, this game is really, really fast, I guess, because it's gonna go pretty quickly.
Right.
I think even in the game that I won last time, I feel like I had a couple bad rolls where I wasn't
But
getting...
not to begin.
No, at the beginning. At the beginning, I had some bad rolls. Yeah, I mean, I had some... bad in that I did bank some food, which I wasn't trying to do, but it is kind of funny that can be a good strategy.
It's like your first roll, you rolled food and workers.
Yes, I did
You
get an
unlocked
extra
the
roll.
4th die right off the bat, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did do that. So that's not terrible.
Yeah.
That's not terrible. But
I'm not trying to undermine you. I'm just,
no. But I want to say in one of our previous games, I had something that I felt like I was totally out of it, and then at least kind of became pseudo competitive.
Yeah.
I guess it also kind of depends on what somebody else rolls. I know that you feel like you had a really bad streak. and
for sure, yeah.
And I know that if you have 3 of those rolls where you're getting negatives every time and not feeding your cities or whatever, you are kind of out of it.
Yeah.
So you kind of know
at least early. I think if you have like some not ideal rolls like middle to end of the game, because you're probably rolling more dice at that point, it's not a killer. But you really do need to get going kind of fast in this game. The reason being. And we can talk about this too, because this might be a little bit of a con. But the reason being is you want to be rolling more than 3 dice, okay?
Yeah.
1, because it's a liability, right? 2, because I don't want to get too much into the details, but when you're rolling just 3 dice, you can have just straight up bad rolls.
Yeah.
Like if you roll a coin with just rolling 3 dice and you have no goods, that's like rolling nothing.
Right.
Because everything is at minimum cost 10 and a single coin is 7.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me a few times where I rolled like a coin and no good.
Right.
But that's just 8.
Right.
And you need 10. So actually that was like 2 of your 3 dice are useless.
Right.
And so if you're not getting 1 or 2 extra dice going pretty early and like getting moving, you will fall behind, you'll feel behind, and then what will start happening is you'll start getting nailed by pestilence.
Right, exactly.
And that's another thing is I feel like, there are cool developments in there and you can see the pathways, but I do feel like a couple of these, at least one of these developments is like you have to take it.
You have to take the drought thing.
Like, because
irrigation.
The points are not super high. I mean, they're like teens to maybe low 20s. And if you get hit with pestilence 3 times like I did last game, because I literally couldn't buy the
straight 9
development because I just wasn't rolling them, you've lost 9 points.
Yeah.
You're done at that point, right?
We had a lot of those last night.
Oh man, they were coming out like crazy.
So for context,
Every roll I was doing them.
Oh my
for
God,
context,
so
good.
we were playing on Yukata, and I don't know if you guys have played on Yukata, but it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a
you
cool
can play
it's a
games
cool
like
interface.
that, but it's not like this most like sophisticated way to play board games online in the sense that you can't really see what your opponents are doing like actively, right? So like if you're at,
well,
if
you
you're
can, but you have to click something.
you kind of have to
Look on
like
the
do
eyeball.
this
Yeah.
stuff
Or
to
the
like
feet.
observe it, but it's only after they've taken those moves, right?
Right, sure. Yeah.
So you can inspect what other people have done, but what I mean is it's not like at the table you're seeing their roll, you're seeing their next roll, you're seeing their next roll, and so you almost like don't see it coming, and so your turn pops up and it's like, hey, you lost 9 points, and you're like, sorry, what?
What's wrong
last
with
time it
you?
was
You
my
lost
turn.
9
I had
points.
4 disasters. Now I have 8. Like what
Yeah.
in the world? And that's just a Yukata thing, I guess. But I agree. There are certain things, especially because the game is so short, that
Right.
if you had more time, you could overcome this sort of negative reality that like maybe you should pretty much take irrigation every time if you
Right.
can, and avoid the drought thing for -2, or take medicine and
Right.
keep
Right.
yourself from being vulnerable to pestilence.
Yeah.
And that stinks because it means you have to take your turns,
And
to
that's
build
2
up
of
to
your
that,
5
and-
developments,
exactly,
right? And
right.
that's the thing I come back to is it dangles all these cool paths in front of you and all these cool developments,
But
and
are
you can
ever
go
gonna have
for
time
that.
yeah.
But are you really gonna risk and be like, you know what, I'm not gonna protect against any of these disasters, I'm just gonna build this cool stuff? You'll get nailed. Especially if you're playing 4 players, you're toast. 3 players, you're really pushing your luck. 2 players, you might be able to get away with it.
Well, I didn't choose Madison when we played.
Well, that's because you were the one rolling. I didn't choose it either, and I lost like 12 points, right? I mean, I wasn't rolling skulls. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you got away with it in that particular case, but I didn't. I got nailed over and over and over and over again. You know?
I was doing the nailing.
I know. I know.
I think that like since we are kind of talking about cons, like I would say it plainly that like I think my issue is that I think the whole 5 developments ends the game
Agree.
is not a good end condition.
Totally agree.
I had a tough. I was texting Chris earlier today, going, "Man, I'm thinking about Wrath of the Ages and trying to really nail down what I think about it, because I'm always asking that question when I've got to review a game of like, was it fun?" And there are so many things about this game that I do think are fun.
Mm-hmm.
But if I feel like my play ends up being like, well, I better make something happen or it's going to be over
Right.
so fast, like then it feels more stressful than fun, I guess. And it's the length of the game that I think puts my fun in jeopardy, I guess. And I know that the game's designed to be short, but
it's real short.
I think it's too short, because
I
I
agree.
think that you need more levers to pull in terms of like
getting that guard, in place, getting your specialty sort of in place and get that working, and to where you really feel like you're not kind of starting every turn with, well, I hope I get what I really need every roll, right? Like what you want to see in these sort of Yahtzee style engine building type games is that by the, I don't know, third, fourth turn, you've got enough of an engine built that you can kind of lean on your previous progress a little bit in order to mitigate, some of the randomness, I guess. And I don't really feel like you have that much of that, or at least not for long enough before the game is potentially over, right? If you kind of need this baseline 2 developments or 3 developments just to kind of be in a good position, well, then there's only 2 more.
And yeah, again,
and then the game's over.
As Bill mentioned, you can just forego those, but you are taking a risk, I think.
Does the person who gets the 5th development always win the game?
I don't think so, but maybe often. Because usually when somebody does that, it's because they're winning. Right? It's a player-controlled end. If you're taking the 5th one, it's because you think you've got it.
I gotcha.
Right? And so probably it is true, although something could happen. But yeah, that did seem to be how our games were winning. It's just because it's so easy to get those cheaper ones, right?
Yeah.
Just to get the points. And
the last game we played, when I filled out the Great Wall of China that protects you from attack, I also filled out my last development, which was a 10-point development.
Just to end the game, right?
Just end the game, because I knew you guys couldn't come back.
Right.
Which, it's like go for the jugular because it's...
Totally, why not, right?
Right, exactly.
But I think that's what we're complaining about, is that it shouldn't be a 5 development in game condition.
But if we had
usually that means the games are 7 to 8 turns long, right?
Right. But if we'd have played 5 more turns, I'm not sure you guys could have come back.
Maybe not.
Maybe. I don't know.
I guess my point is, and then we'll go into final thoughts. And are you all right with that?
Yeah,
I'll start. I guess. Okay, I'll just go right into it. So I guess my problem with that is I may still not win, but at least I got to do it. That's the thing that gets me about this game is it dangles these really awesome developments at the end that are real expensive. I'm like, man, it'd be so cool if I could get that.
Yeah.
And then just by the time you've got enough dice and you've got enough goods and you finally got into a position, you buy it and maybe you use it one round and the game's over. And I'm like, dang it. I just want to do this cool thing. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's over. It's just over so fast.
Yeah.
That you just don't feel like you can get anything cool going, whether you win or not. The lower cost developments are helpful and cool, but the ones that are expensive are real cool.
They're real cool.
You want to use them, right? But it takes a lot of investment and rolling the right things in early turns to get there. And I just feel like that for maybe every game where you actually can pull it off and get that dopamine hit and be like, it was awesome.
Yeah.
You're going to have 3 games where you're wading in molasses, and you just can't get it working, right? Because the dice just aren't coming up right or whatever. And so, while I mentioned, the slow start thing that can take you out of a game, that's problematic. That was really the biggest thing for me, is I just felt myself wanting more and it just being over. And so because of that, I'm going to land on a 3 for it, and I hate it because thematically I think it's cool. It makes sense. It's got cool ideas. It's just over too fast, And so, I don't know. It just left me feeling a little empty, I guess. So that's where I'm going to land on it.
Who's next?
You.
Awesome. So
I give this game a 5. It's awesome.
Really? Shoot. I mean, I really enjoyed this game. It's
bet
short.
You did.
It's a great filler. Yeah. I mean, Chris is going to give me a hard time because I had the wind glow at the end of it.
Recent play bias.
Exactly. Yeah, I did lose the first couple times we played, but I did feel like I was learning something as I was playing. I think there's choices to be made when you play your dice. I totally agree that a house rule where you can somehow make the game play a little longer.
Let's play 10 rounds or something.
Exactly, because even when winning, there's 2 of the developments at the end will give you like plus 1 point for every development you have, or 1 for every city you have. And so if you go with the let me build a bunch of cities route, so I'm rolling a bunch of dice, that could be a huge game changer, because you could get 8 points at the very end.
Plus,
you get with just that one, because it's 8 points for that one, and then 8 points for the number of cities you have. That would be a 16-point turnaround at the very end. And it's hard to imagine the way the rules are set up right now that somebody could get that, because you would have to.
I got the one right below it. In the game where I got blown out last night.
Right, exactly.
But I literally spent all game. I got it on my last turn.
Right, but you only had 2 monuments, right? So you got a +2 from that, right? Yeah, exactly.
So rolling like crap. Yeah, I just didn't get anything going.
Exactly, because it's like you would have needed more workers to get there, kind of thing.
Right.
So it's all this catch-22. There's this whole, you don't have time to build your engine component to this thing that I do think is an issue. But I think that could be addressed. I mean, I think there's something in here. I mean, you could say, okay, maybe you do both, right? You do 5 and you complete all the monuments, and then the game ends.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a fairly
that's possible. Yeah, that would extend at least a round or 2.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, which excites me about it. I don't know. These are one of the kind of games that for me trips my trigger of nostalgia.
Yeah,
and.
This game's got you.
It's got you. I mean, it is one of those things that, I don't necessarily like dice games like this where there does have the luck component, but I do feel like this gives you the ability to mitigate it in a bunch of different ways, like getting leadership by getting more cities, getting a bunch of different things that get you through there. So I'm going to give it a 5 because, I mean, I loved it. I would play it again. I will trade Igor for that. So yeah, this is a fun game. You should get it, and don't listen to Chris.
It's fun if you're rolling everything that you could want, and it's just coming up roses like it was last night for Bill. I mean, literally just rolling like I'm messing with you. I'm saying I could. It is fun. I've been on that end.
Yeah.
Where I was rolling great, everything was working out. I was like, man, this is awesome. But man, when you have the opposite game of that, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. You're saying it was rolling because they're writing folk songs about the strategy that I was using.
Yes.
Are you talking about the AI?
Well, the groups of people that I randomly listen to on the radio on the way home that are singing songs about the game that we played.
This is what Bill listens to in the car now. He creates songs on AI about how great he is at board games.
About his
You're
victories.
outing me. I don't know if you want to include it.
This is why you need to join the Discord, because we're going to get him to put the tracks that he created on the Discord for everyone to enjoy. And
yes,
all right,
absolutely.
All right, Cameron.
I'll give my final thoughts.
What do you think?
So my thoughts on this are very similar to yours, Chris. I think I really wanted to really like this game. From a thematic standpoint, I really enjoyed it. Even just from like a round-around thing, I liked it. I thought Jason's take was pretty funny. We got to bring his curmudgeonness into this.
He was full on curmudgeon when we played it with him.
He got done playing. He's like, you just roll your dice and you just wait 20 minutes in between turns. But I think even with that, when you're just hanging out, it's like a low low cognitive investment sort of game, right? And so I had a lot of like high hopes for it, but the whole abrupt ending to the game, it's kind of like when you play a D&D campaign and you scraggle your way through levels 1 through 5, and you're looking at the player's handbook. I don't know if this analogy is going to work for anybody.
I know what you're
in
going,
the audience,
going with
but you look it through the player's handbook and you're like, oh man, when I get to level 15, I get this really cool stuff. I can't wait to use it. Sweet move that I'm gonna get to crush my enemies with, and then your campaign breaks up and you never actually get.
And then you start another one. You start level 1 in the tavern again,
right?
I have sleep, I swear.
And it
magic missile again.
Yeah, and it feels like that a little bit. You're like, I want to get all this epic tier moves, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you, and the game's over, and you have negative 12 disasters,
whiners,
because you got
to death
multiple times, and you didn't have medicine or whatever. So I don't know. That's kind of where I land on it. It's just like,
I honestly, I really would play this game again with one of these sort of house ruled end game conditions.
Yeah.
But because we have to rate games how they come out of the box, right? I've got to also give it a 3. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's unenjoyable, but I can't give it high praise because of that issue.
Yeah.
So that's where I land as well. That's a 3.
Okay. I like it. So Bill's wrong. Perfect. Okay. So if you want to pick this game up, there are copies available on Noble Night. Again, our 10% discount code is HolidayGems24. There are also 26 copies on the BGG Marketplace, and I'm pretty sure you can buy this still direct from Eagle Griffin Games for pretty cheap probably as well. I don't know what Eagle Griffin does, but man, their back stock is insane. I mean, they have games from like the early 2000s still in their warehouse.
Wow.
And cheap.
Yeah, when their holiday sales come on, I mean, they're selling stuff for like dollars. So you can get this game pretty easily, no problem.
Well, those are our thoughts on Roll Through the Ages. Thank you guys for joining us on yet another wonderful, spectacular Christmas episode for 2024. If you like what we're doing here, please remember it's a huge help if you would leave a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice and follow us on our various social media platforms. Those simple things can make a difference for the show's exposure so more folks can enjoy exploring games with us. You can check out the BGG Guild if you want to interact with us. You can jump over onto the Discord. We're on there. We'd love to chat with you. You can also consider supporting the show at patreon.com/Hidden Gems Podcast. And until next time, I'm your host, Cameron.
This is Chris.
And this is Bill.
Thanks for listening.
This episode of Hidden Gems, number 71, was recorded in Raleigh, North Carolina on December 12th, 2024. A little bit of real talk here real quick. Don't usually do this, but I'm not quite sure when our next episode's going to be. Because it's Christmas and New Year's. If we can get enough plays in before the board game retreat, the plan is to do an episode on Queen games. If not, we're going to do a post-mortem on our board game retreat and talk about games we played then. So I don't know what's going to happen, but one of those two things, you're either going to get Queen, or we're going to talk about games we played at our retreat, middle of January. Just tune in to find out.
It'll be awesome either way.
It'll be awesome either way.
It's a good reason to subscribe to the show.
Exactly. I'm going to try real hard to get that Queen Games episode in. Hidden Gems is produced and edited by Chris Alley, Cameron Lockey, Jason Yanchuleff, and Bill Arney. Our Board Game Geek Guild is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Ghidorah. Our Discord channel is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Snoozefest. Our show's logo was illustrated by designer and artist Caitlin Nieto. Check out her work on Instagram at It's Caitlin Nieto. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to join the discussion on our many social media accounts. You can find us on Instagram at Hidden Gems Podcast and X at Hidden Gems Board. Disagree with one of our reviews? Have something you want to say about one of the games we discussed today? You can make your voice heard on our Discord channel or on our Board Game Geek Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, guild number 3874. Once again, thank you for joining us on Hidden Gems. And until next time, fellow gem seekers, enjoy your games and enjoy your circle.